Very warm welcome to the fellow bearers of the curse. This is the first part of my Dark Souls 2 in-depth lore-through miniseries. There will be a total of 3 episodes, with the next releasing on Christmas Day and the last releasing on Boxing Day. If you are new to the channel, then you can expect detailed discussions ranging from the characters, the themes, the items, the environments, the development, and of course, the lore. Please remember to like, and if you are new, subscribe. Without wasting any more time, let's begin our journey into Drang Lake.
Perhaps you've seen it, maybe in a dream, a murky, forgotten land. A place where souls may mend your ailing mind. You will lose everything once branded, the symbol of the curse, an augur of darkness. Your past, your future, your very light. None will have meaning, and you won't even care. By then, you'll be something other than human. A thing that feeds on souls, a hollow. Long ago, in a walled-off land far to the north, a great king built a great kingdom. I believe they called it Drang Lake. Perhaps you're familiar? No, how could you be? But one day, you will stand before its decrepit gate without really knowing why. Drawn to a flame, your wings will burn in anguish, time after time. For that is your fate, the fate of the cursed.
Before we explore and discuss the things that can be found within the Things Betwixt, let's go back over the intro cinematic and talk about what we saw and what we heard during our time with it.
Perhaps you've seen it. Maybe in a dream.
Instantly, the game hits you with the concept of dreams. Dreams and memories are an especially important topic when discussing Dark Souls 2. Many players describe Dark Souls 2 as being dreamlike, and if you have played, you'll know that you are able to travel to the past via memories of the fallen giants. For those of you who have played other Dark Souls games, you'll know that once someone is marked with undeath, their memories start to slip. They start to become alien to themselves and others around them, and we see this slipping of mind and memories in the intro cinematic of Dark Souls 2. Our faces of loved ones begin to crumble in our mind, and we can no longer remember who they were and what they meant to us. Dark Souls 2 very much focuses on the human side of the curse, and it's because of this that many players can personally relate to the stories found within this game, as they have unfortunately had family members who may have suffered from dementia. Inside of the old woman's cabin can be seen spiders and their webs. She's also spindling thread. Both of these things I believe to represent fate. The old woman is also blind. Her lack of sight may aid her in foreseeing the future. Many believe this woman to be a firekeeper, and that topic we will continue in the Things Betwixt. When we are given the name of the kingdom in which we seek, players will know that this is not Dranglake Castle. Dranglake Castle is relatively new, as it was commissioned by the king for his wife Nashandra. Perhaps this location was the former capital. For those who have not played, this place is known as the Dragon Eyrie. The topic of many kingdoms rising and falling on the same spot is commonly discussed when interacting with the NPCs. This means that many kingdoms simply reuse the same structures of the previous rulers. Dranglake was also known for its dragon riders, so it would make sense if this place was once under the king's control and perhaps his permanent residence. After all, this place can only be accessed via his brother's estate. She then goes on to ask if we are familiar with the kingdom named Dranglake, but then just as quickly she dismisses it. This then ties in with people's theories that she is the missing firekeeper from the Things Betwixt. However, this dialogue can also tie in with the theme of dreams and memories. We sail upon some lakeside ruins and are met with a lone standing tree covered in fireflies. Upon the floor can be seen many human remains. Perhaps this tree was once a giant. Perhaps the ruins are a graveyard of an ancient and forgotten battle. Next we see a blood-red moon, accompanied with a wailing cry. The fireflies are quick to react to this. In the lake can be seen the ruins in their full form. For those who have played Bloodborne, a red moon upon a lake should be familiar. In the water's reflection, spectres spill out of the opening door. Perhaps these are the spirits of the remains seen earlier. In the water, the spirits form a vortex, and the fireflies are attracted to it. Here we see creatures of light being attracted to dark. We see a quick flash of the same black vortex that could be seen earlier on the protagonist's back. Our pupils widen, searching for light within the dark. In Dark Souls 1, Ulasil's sorceries deal in light. Light is time. However, light can only ever move forwards and never back. In Dark Souls, the being that drags us into the past is Manus, the father of the abyss, a being of pure dark. In Dark Souls 2, it is my theory that we are yet again travelling to the past, and it is not light that enables this, it is only dark. Here we awaken in the Things Betwixt, a limbo between the once was and the what will be. We stand beneath a gazebo, and the style reminds me of Ulysses. These white pillars encased in green ivy. Ivy and vines very much being a symbol of Ulysses. The grass-crest shield is an example of that. And again, if you're familiar with my An Undead Pilgrimage, I've talked about Ulysses a lot in that series. So if you've not watched that, please do so. Now, what's very interesting is we use similar structures such as this to Dark Dive. It's a covenant that can be found in Dark Souls 2, and there you can go into the abyss and light sconces, and one of them, if you do them all, the last one will hold a boss. But we won't get onto that boss. More importantly, we'll just talk about what's in the middle of this gazebo. And that is a reflective surface, a shiny metal, or perhaps a worn and tarnished mirror. Now, what did we see in the lake's reflection from the intro? We saw the ruins. There's a player just standing in the way. Thank you, Mr. Player. Enjoy your game, sir. We saw the reflection of the ruins in the water. Now, mirrors is something we'll come across in Dark Souls 2, probably not within this mini-series, but if you've played Dark Souls 2, you'll know mirrors are pretty important. Now, we know mirrors from our real world and the occult. Mirrors can spawn or summon demons. Mirrors can be an opposite of the real world and not a very nice one. But also mirrors can be seen as a gateway into new lands and new places. So, is this how we travelled into the past, using a reflection from the future? If this is a mirror, if you're familiar with Dark Souls 2, this may make more sense, because as I said, mirrors are pretty important in this game. But something to think about. I mean, it is just a shiny surface, but this is unique to this area. I'm not familiar with this being seen anywhere else. You know, there could be something there, or I could just be wearing a tinfoil hat. What isn't tinfoil hat territory is these. Now, people, there's two ways of speculating these, and what I like to believe them is they are stalactites. Oh, did you hear my stomach then? Apparently I'm pretty hungry. They are stalagmites and stalactites that have formed together over many hundreds of thousands of years, millions of years, however long it takes, and they now form these solid pillars. But of course, these are very reminiscent to the stone arch trees that can be seen in the intro of Dark Souls 1. And arch trees are what the ancient dragons nested in. They called them their home, and the Witch of Izalith and her Daughters of Chaos burnt them down in the war with the ancient dragons. Now, these could be petrified trees, they could be stone trees, but they look more stone than trees, so I've always thought they were stalactites and stalagmites, as we can see stalagmites on the roof between these pillars. And if I've got that wrong, forgive me, because I always forget. Stalagtites fall down and stalagmites go up, I believe. So whichever ones these are, you can see them between the pillars of rock. So that's why I don't believe these are trees. But we do see trees further on in this area. The first one we see is in the distance there by the break in the in the cave wall. And this, many people believe to represent rebirth, fertility, sex, and its themes is often found within Dark Souls and is very obvious in Bloodborne. People don't really like talking about it in the Souls games, but it is there. Like many themes found throughout the Souls games, if it's in one, it was probably in the rest. So please apply that knowledge from themes found in Bloodborne or Sekiro, because they might appear in older games or newer games of From, and you may be surprised what you find and can speculate from those points and observations. So as I said, we've woken in the things betwixt. This is a limbo. So whether or not this is real is to be debated. We see these kobolds, I believe the enemies are called, and this is where they can be found. But if you've played the game, you'll know that this isn't the only area that they can be found in, as they are later found in an area called Aldir, or Aldir's Keep. And Aldir is the brother of King Bendrick, and he has his own estate, and that estate connects to the Dragon Eyrie. Now, the Dragon Eyrie sits atop tall stone pillars, very reminiscent to the ones we see in this cave. As I mentioned, stone arch trees were the home of the dragons, and it seems in Dark Souls 2 the drakes live atop a structure placed upon these tall stone pillars. So, is Aldir aware of this place? Is this where he got the kobolds from? Could this place be connected to Aldir in any way? I'm not too sure. But we see human remains spewed across this place, and presumably the kobolds have attacked and eaten them. I believe if you stay in this area too long, they will actually attack you. So be pretty fast through here and don't stop and talk like I'm doing. We also get to see that the structure, the gazebo, was much taller, but due to time it has crumbled, resulting in what we see before us. So really, really cool area. We see fallen trees, hollow trees, and trees being hollow is something we will enter and explore in a short second as we go through this area. So that's also an interesting observation, that the trees are hollow in this location, or mostly hollow. We find a corpse, and on it is a rusted coin. And good old-fashioned style of the Dark Souls Lorethroughs, we shall read the items we find in our inventory. The first will be of the dark sign, of course. It reads, an accursed mark. The dark sign induces death, returning the player to the last bonfire rested at the cost of all souls held. Do what you must to gather the pieces, scraping them into a semblance of a whole before the will to do so fades. The rusted coin. As you can see, the rusted coin depicts a winged figure. Is this an angel? Is this a deity? We cannot tell. Did they hold something in their arms? I'm not too sure. But as we know, if you're familiar with the coins found in Dark Souls 1, there's the copper coin, and on the copper coin can be seen Old Man McLoif. There's the silver coin, and on that coin is the Night King Rendell. And there's the gold coin, and on that coin is Old Man McLoif, is Old Father Lloyd. But here, this coin doesn't look similar to that, because as we'll find out, Dark Souls 2 is set way in the future from Dark Souls 1. Many ages of fire have been and gone, many kingdoms have risen and fallen on the very same spot. So deities, their names have changed, they are known by many names. Two deities may be the same deity, but due to time and differences in belief, they become separated. And belief and miracles is something we may get into through this mini-series, as the stories of the gods, it's really brought into question whether they happened, and it seems new miracles have been made, and it all depends on one's faith. If they believe in it, then it will come true, and you'll be able to act out the miracle and use it to your benefit. So I think that's a really interesting concept that Dark Souls 2 goes into, kind of questioning, did these things happen, and are these people real, from the perspective of the recent Age of Fire. You have the Black Separation Crystal, a returning item from Dark Souls 1. We see it is yet again a black crystal wrapped in white cloth. Now what this symbolises, I think I speculated in my Unundead Pilgrimage, but I'm not too sure. Could the black represent Velka and the white represent, I don't know, Anolondo in some way? Velka, Gwendolyn? I don't think so, I'm just throwing those out there, but something to consider, as crystals and soapstones are pretty important and are also wrapped in fabric found within Dark Souls 1. Anyway, the Black Separation Crystal, a symbol of farewells that has been passed down since time immemorial. The crystal sends phantoms back to their homes or sends you back to yours. Whether ending in hope or despair, encounters are valuable experiences. Beware fickle use of this item. So rather interesting. And here we see Bone of Order, a bone wrapped in red thread. Try to get out then. There's a bit of a tongue twister. Red thread. Or it is for me, because I'm severely dyslexic. If this is your first time watching this, I should warn you, I'm dyslexic. I will misread. I will missay things. Forgive me. It's more annoying for me than it is for you. I assure you. I have to live with it. And I hate it, especially when trying to write a script and read a script to create a lore video. It gets in the way massively. Anyway, this red thread we will see on other items relating to invasions. But interesting, we find it on the Bone of Order, which restores the link to other worlds. It's an online play item. You will be punished for fleeing from other worlds by disconnecting unjustly. However, this charm will disperse the ire directed at you. Both sins are not easily buried, and there's no telling if you will be let off so easily next time. Each encounter in life is a precious turn of fate, and fate will not be cheated. So really, really cool. But sins are not easily buried, and there's no telling if you'll be let off next time. So again, this theme of sin. I referenced Velka in the Black Separation Crystal, and now we have the mention, and Gwendolyn, sorry, and we have the mention of sin in this item, which also relates to invasions. You know, connections to be made, things to consider, but really cool. And the mention, of course, that fate cannot be cheated. So also the fact that fate is determined potentially by a deity who deems you a sinner, and then sends people after to punish you for your sins. So that's really interesting concept, I guess, to think about. We shall read the armour. Imported hood, hemp hood that fully covers the face, provides protection from the elements and little more. The cursed souls who wander the lands have a strange way of ending up here, as if drawn from afar by some force. And this theme of people ending up in Drang Lake, and especially Majula, is something we will experience and explore as we go on in this game and this mini-series, as people don't know why they're here. Much like the old woman in the cabin explained in the intro, we will stand before its decrepit gates without really knowing why. And this theme of not really knowing why, as I said, is common in Dark Souls 2. People are drawn to Drang Lake for some reason, and they forget that reason, and yet they still remain. Something is pulling them here. We have the imported tunic. Traveller's tunic won't provide much in the way of protection. The cursed souls who wander the lands have a strange way of ending up here, as if drawn by some afar by some force. And it basically reads the same for the rest of the armour. And I think that is all. Yeah. So you can hear the kobolds growling. They're getting a bit unrestless. Well, restless, should I say. So we shall leave this area. We will explore this in a short while, but first we shall head to this structure and get away from the water, because the sound of water is extremely loud in all Souls games. It's so absurdly loud above all the other sounds, so I never like to talk over it. Anyway, as I said, we'll talk more about what's over there, and especially what's behind there. But for now, we'll focus on this. We can see this tree is inhabited with a door and windows. But you also see bones hung to dry, presumably. And interesting why there's bones here. Are they human bones? We've seen human remains over there, so they could be human remains. And what purpose do they serve? Is this a warning? Are they drying out? Is this some kind of to be a part of a ritual? But as we know, bones are used to fuel the bonfire, so are these undead? Because this directly, if they are undead bones, and this relates to the people inside, as there is a bonfire very near here, and bonfires being needed to be refueled isn't something we really explore in Dark Souls, other than, I suppose, when you defeat Udex Gundyr and put the fire poker, let's just say, in the basin, and the flame of lights in Dark Souls 3 allows you to fast travel to the High Wall of Lothric. But you know, how long do bones burn for? The bones of the undead, presumably a very, very long time, but maybe they eventually, you know, burn away and use themselves up, so you have to keep it fueled, I guess. I'm just trying to think of a reason why these bones are here, if they're warning, if it's just some part of some shaman worship. I'm not too sure. Maybe I'm reading a bit too much into it. It's easy to do in these games. Anyway, let's open this door and see who waits inside.
What seems to be the ruckus?
Oh my, your face. The face of the curse. It's an undead. An undead has come to play. They all end up here. All the ones like you. You spoke to that kind old dear, didn't you?
You're finished. You'll go hollow. Yes, you'll become one of them.
Hollows prey upon men, feast upon their souls. This is the fate of the cursed.
What is your name?
So, they are familiar with travellers seemingly open their front door, and they seem not so serious about this event, like it's happened too many times for them to take seriously. They are three very old women, and they are familiar with the old deer. Now, that must be the woman in the cabin that we spoke of. As I mentioned, people believe her to be the firekeeper, and I too do believe her to be the firekeeper that is missing, and she would have been sat in that empty chair. Now, our name, to respect the OG, the man who started the lore, the man who made me fall in love with this game after I originally dropped it out of rage. Ian B. Epic name, bro. Marcus, this goes to you.
At least you know your own name. Here's your reward for sharing. It's a human effigy.
Take a closer look.
Who do you think it's supposed to be? Think back, deep into your past. Yes, it's an effigy of you.
Now, how are we able to see ourselves in the effigy? That's really interesting. If you'll notice, the effigy held a black swirl in the centre, and that black swirl to me is very reminiscent of the Firekeeper soul. It kind of takes the same pattern that can be seen in those souls in Dark Souls 1. And Firekeepers are a breed of humanity, well, for humanity. Beneath their skin riles uncountable amounts of humanity that swarm and bite at their very being. And that humanity causes mutations. And that's something we may get into as we continue with Dark Souls 2. But for now, we will select probably a knight. And our gift shall be a petrified something, as we can use this to potentially gain better items. And that is how we'll look. We may change our hair. I've forgotten how you move in this character creation. How do we move? Okay, after a bit of fiddling, I've now selected what my guy should look like. Not much of a looker, and didn't do too much customization, but it will do. I mean, he's soon to have a helmet on his head, so it doesn't really matter. And even though I named him Ian B, I didn't make him look like Ian B, as again, I don't have much time to mess around in the character customization, and that is not the point of this series. We are focused on lore and the nitty-gritty details, should I say, not our personal character and what they look like. So, just to go over, we selected a knight. For our gift, we selected the petrified something, and we shall now finalise our creation. This is my true self.
All people come here for the same reason. To break the curse.
You're no different, I should think. Doesn't stand a chance.
Well, you never know. Go through the door and trot along to the kingdom.
But remember, hold on to your souls. They're all that keep you from going hollow. Oh, I'll fool you no longer. You'll lose your souls. All of them. Over and over again.
And here we are. We stand in the ghost of another player. And we are vibrant. Very white. I've not seen the sun in a while. But speaking of the sun, it is a ball of fire. And fire is what these old women keep. Or they once did. Important detail though is to note, there are 3 flames on this table. The 4th flame is the fire which the old woman sits next to, and of course there is a firekeeper missing. So each firekeeper used to look after a flame. Do these flames represent something? Does this symbolize something? Obviously, if you believe the woman in the beginning intro to be the firekeeper, then of course this is where she would have once sat. But the robes that she wore in the intro are faded and kind of muddied. Again, that is either due to her living conditions or time. If we are indeed being sent to the past, and of course the robes that she wore, well, she wears, have faded due to time. So really interesting to think about. As I mentioned, the old woman, well, these old women don't seem too serious about curing the curse and why we've come here to cure our ailing mind. They tell us about souls, and they tell us we will go hollow. They tell us to trot along to the kingdom, as if it's all one big joke. As if they've been here, as I said, too many times, for too long of a time, and have seen it all, and nothing is new. They have given up hope. But how much time have these firekeepers sat within this tree telling people to trot along to the kingdom? Well, this NPC might give us an idea of just how long they've been here. So let's speak to her. Her name is Millibeth, I believe.
This is a limbo. A link between Drangleic and the outer world. Fair traveller, I know that you must have a story. Why else would you visit such a place? This lost, decayed kingdom.
That kingdom, of course, is Drangleic she's referring to. I also want to make note, the woman who sent us here, the woman in the cabin spindling the thread, she said that the kingdom far off to the north, the walled kingdom, she said it as. Now, not Drang Lake, Lorethrough, it has walls, yes, of the Burg, and even the city of Anor Londo has walls on one side. The other side is not fully encased with walls, the city of the gods, although you may be led to believe that if you're looking up from the Burg. But my point being, Lorethrough has natural walls. It sits high above the lands below it. You know? So it's got that natural fortification. And Lorethrough rising and being above the lands, the other lands out in the world, is a point I've made in my An Undead Pilgrimage. Lothric rising is a topic that is discussed in Dark Souls 3. And of course Lothric is the capital and kind of mirrors Lorethrough and Anor Londo in that way. So I suggested in An Undead Pilgrimage, if they introduced that idea of a kingdom rising in a very similar fashion to what Lorethrough looks like, then perhaps Lorethrough too also rose from the ground, on purpose or by accident. There is a arch tree that grows through the mountain with its branches jutting out and covering Firelink Shrine, so perhaps that ties in with why the part of the world rose from the ground. As the tree sprouted, it took a bit of the earth with it, perhaps. I'm not too sure, but just interesting to think about. Maybe that was an early idea that they didn't know how to implement in the first game, and then by the time the third game came around, they found a way to integrate it and to form a story around that event and that event occurring. But anyway, my point being is Drang Lake is referred to as a walled kingdom almost. And the reason why it's walled could be because of many reasons, but potentially this ties in with the giants, as fortifications were made to fend off the giants and to stoke fear into the giants. Huge statues of men on the coastal line we'll see in the Forest of the Fallen Giants. So maybe there are walls similar to those found all throughout Drang Lake, in places we the player don't get to see. I don't know, it's just an interesting thing to think about. I went on a bit of a long tangent there, but it's me, you guys know what I'm like. Right, we'll re-speak to Millibeth. I'm pretty sure her name's Millibeth.
My name is Millibeth.
Yes, it is. Thank you, love.
The old women were once firekeepers. I am here to look after them. It is what my mother did, and her mother before her, and so on.
So there we go. I've suggested how long they've been here inside this cozy little cottage, this wooden cottage, and long time. Millibeth's family for generations have served the Firekeepers. Now, as I mentioned, Firekeepers, beneath their skin writhe untold amounts of humanity, and humanity is life. Humanity is what humans carry within. Well, all humans carry the dark side, humanity. Humanity is used to fuel the fire, hence why they're Firekeepers. If sat at in Dark Souls 1, a bonfire which is being looked after by a Firekeeper is naturally set to 10. We can restore the form of a Firekeeper by returning the soul to the body. Anastasia should I say, is an example of that, where she once lay beneath Firelink. We gift back her soul and she takes back her form. So that might explain why these women have been alive for so long, due to the humanity and the powers that can be used with it. another form of undeath, yes, but not like hollowing. They retain their mind and are still sharp and witty, even with their age. And their age is also brought into question with another NPC, and that NPC can be found in Majula and is rather furry and quite feline. So speak to Millibeth again.
The old women were keepers of the fire. But now, the fire shows signs of fading. And the kingdom is beset by hollows.
The fire shows signs of fading. Now, I would say the fire is not only showing signs, but it's almost fully faded. For those of you who completed the game, we see no evidence of fire, of a flame still smouldering in embers, like we see in Dark Souls 1 that we then relight. We have a kiln and a throne which we sit upon, almost like we are yet again fuel for the fire, but we never see that example of fire being relit. If you choose to link the fire, that is. If you choose Dark Ending, you'll see flame being snuffed out, as to be expected. But really interesting. Millibeth will give you an item called the ladle, depending. I've forgotten what's required to do that. You have to advance through the game and return here, and she will give you the ladle. Many people have done challenge runs with that weapon. I believe Lobos Jr. did one. Lobos Jr. also did a challenge run way back in the day, before Scholar of the First Sin, I believe, in the vanilla Dark Souls 2. He did a run where he held a torch and he could not let it go out. So that meant he couldn't roll in certain sections, especially the Shrine of Armana. And if you've never seen or heard of Lobos Jr., definitely check him out. He's a Twitch streamer and does Dark Souls challenge runs, and very entertaining. Great guy. Anyway, above the room, we see storage. We see tables, we see sacks, we see pots. It's definitely seen better days, and I'm not sure what the firekeepers live off. But as I mentioned about the humanity, perhaps they don't need to eat to stay alive. Perhaps eating is just a pastime and something that one can enjoy. But if one doesn't need it, one could untrain themselves to enjoy it, you know what I mean? So any provisions left up here is probably for Millibeth, because she's very much human, and due to the dialogue about her family serving the firekeepers, you know, she can die. Anyway, in this chest, which is a wooden chest, compared to Dark Souls 1, you can break chests in this game if they are wooden, and any item within that chest, if not picked up before it's broken, will turn into rubbish. So don't be smashing any chests in fear of mimics, as mimics can only occur in, I believe, it's mostly metallic chests, if not all metallic chests. Anyway, we will read the human effigy, which of course takes the silhouette of a human, and as I mentioned, there's that spiral in the centre, very reminiscent of the spiral that can be seen on the Firekeeper's soul, at least to me it is. A warm, soft, shadow-like effigy. Use this item to reverse hollowing. It also weakens the link to other worlds, preventing invasions and most cooperation. Peer closely at an effigy and one begins to perceive a human form, but those who form but whose form it depends, butchering this, but whose form it takes depends on the person looking. So this isn't unique to us. As I mentioned, all humans carry the dark soul, or were once carriers of the dark soul. We know the dark soul could be gifted, it could be held, it could be taken in Dark Souls 1, so does the same still apply here? It seems the humanity has been replaced by the human effigy. It's not only an effigy of the person who looks upon it, but it's also an effigy of its former self. This kind of burnt up husk is a reminder of what humanity used to be, kind of similar to humans. Really, really interesting. You know, you make an effigy in the image of something, and of course effigies are then burnt. And depending on who looks on it, as said by the description, it will change, which I think is really cool. But again, humans, we all had one common ancestor, the furtive pygmy, So this could explain why any human can look upon this object and see themselves within it, because we are all linked, we are all a part of one family. You know? We'll read the sword actually. It won't say anything new. The broadsword is a very good weapon. I believe this was Marcus's favourite in the Dark Souls 2 days. He used this a lot, I believe. The straight sword is sufficient in most respects and effective in most situations if wielded properly. Those who aspire to master the sword are certain to wield this at some point during their journey. And the set we wear actually is the Falconer set. Armour worn by the Volgan Falconers. Domestic Volgan soldiers are infamously timid, so it is no wonder that the fierce band of mercenary Falconers was hired to compensate. So the Volgan soldiers could be a reflection of the society. There's no need for violence, for war in Volgan, and we'll get more on Volgan, and we'll find more people from Volgan when we go to Majula. But really, really interesting. So due to that culture and that society being interested in other things that aren't revolving around war, its soldiers became weak, and the powers that be had to hire mercenaries to fill that role of intimidation. If you've watched Attack on Titan, you'll be familiar with the soldiers kind of becoming complacent with their duties, gambling, drinking. You know, there's no threat due to the wall. It keeps out the Titans till, of course, that fateful day the wall comes down, and then they have to defend themselves and their people. And they run away, they hide, they cower in fear, and they are useless. They're not up to the task because they become complacent with their easy lives. Anyway, in practice they serve as bodyguards for the affluent elites, and they serve well, such that nobody dares scrutinise their backgrounds. Now the Falconer set, you will actually encounter phantoms. I don't think they're phantoms actually, I just think they're normal looking enemies. Anyway, in New Game Plus, when you spawn into Things Betwixt, you will be attacked by falconers and their falcons, but they are a reference to the Band of the Hawk, or it's a fan favourite theory that they are a reference to the Band of the Hawk. And of course the Band of the Hawk is from Berserk, and we're not going to get too much into the inspirations taken from Berserk in the Soul series, because there's many videos out there for you to watch. If you're not familiar with Berserk, that is. If you aren't, please go watch Berserk. The 97 anime is the pinnacle of all animes, in my opinion. It's my favourite anime. And if you've got the money, do buy the manga. And if you've got the extra money, definitely buy the special edition leather-bound books that I've been releasing over the past few years. I think there's probably about 8 of them. Each edition holds 3 or 4 volumes, I forget. I've got 3 of them myself. They are beautiful books, and definitely the best way to get into the manga, as they provide bigger pages, bigger images of the scenes, and yeah, they're beautiful. Usually about 30 to 50 quid depending where you go. They're usually on sale on Amazon for £32 in the UK, that is. I can't speak for anywhere else if you want to get into Berserk, but the 97 anime will suffice if you're not into your manga. And even the Golden Arc 3 movies that released in 2012, they are pretty good, but don't watch 2016, 2017 Berserk. We don't talk about that. Anyway, what we do talk about and talk to is the Woman in Red, or the Women in Red, Firekeepers. Most of them do laugh, but some of them do give us juicy information, and if we do return here, they will give us some items.
You must go on a journey without rest. Well, I suppose if you find yourself at an impasse. But if your will is yet unbroken, then you may return here to start again with a clean slate.
Now, what she's referring to is the soul vessel. Now, the soul vessel is a stone containing soul, or multiple souls. I can't remember the description of it. But the soul vessel allows you to redistribute your attributes and change how you want your character to be. So it's a great way to respec. You find some in your adventures in Drang Lake, but also this lady gives you one. I can't remember the total that can be found, but you can respec as many times as you want, depending how many soul vessels you do have. Speak to this one. She just finds it hilarious. Again, could be a reflection of their age, could be going a bit senile, but again, could be a reflection, as I said. They've just seen it too many times and now they find it hilarious. You know, it's a fool's hope to stop the spread of the curse and relight the Age of Fire, because presumably these being firekeepers, it's safe to say that they wish to see the fire continue and not fade. Perhaps. Because they were once firekeepers, they've already given up their duty, so perhaps they no longer believe in the Age of Fire and no longer see it as a necessity. They've left their duties and now they just act as shepherds. And we are the lambs getting led to slaughter. Except for we don't only die once, we die again and again and again, and with each death we lose our mind. And if we lose hope, we hollow. Now, we shall leave this horrible place and we shall talk about this area. Now, I mentioned Aldia earlier due to the kobolds and the stalactites, stalagmites, or petrified trees, if you want to think of it that way. Obviously, I mentioned in Dragon Eyrie, there's a structure built atop tall rock pillars, stone pillars, and that's where the wyverns live, and a certain ancient dragon. But we won't talk about that because that's a whole other can of worms. My point being is Aldia, he does have influence over this area, because we will find another creature belonging to him just off and up to the right here. And also the fact that there's signs of fortifications, of structures. Again, was this once inhabited? Rather interesting. We see broken trees, snapped, completely destroyed. Again, they are hollow. Could this be a result of whatever left these footprints? I believe it to be so. Now what we see is a thick-hided, one-eyed cyclops hippo creature. Now I've forgotten the actual name of these things, but they are god-awful. I do own the collector's edition of Dark Souls 2. I brought it way back when it released, as Dark Souls 2 released in March, I believe. March, early April. I can't remember the UK release date anyway. I saved my birthday money from the months prior and purchased it, and it only cost £80. It came with the Faram Knight statue, a cloth map, the art book, the steel case, and some other goodies as well. So I do own the collector's edition, and I also brought the guide, the official guide, to go with it. But it's rather interesting, they never released a updated guide to consider Scholar of the First Sin. So Scholar of the First Sin offered or inserted a lot of new things, changed some things around, so that guide for playing this version of the game is kind of redundant in a lot of cases. But anyway, Scholar of the First Sin, people love it, but some people don't. They have some issues with it, mostly due to enemy placement, as it became a gank fest. And I do completely agree with them in the Old Iron Forge area. The Old Iron Keep, should I say. Iron Forge is from World of Warcraft. The Old Iron Keep, there's many certain type of enemies, and it's just ridiculous to get through. But enough about that. Let's fight this one enemy. Huge creature. Pounces. If it grabs you, it will bite your head off. And this isn't the only one we shall find in this area. concentration is real. But yeah, just bait out those attacks, get him to roll down, do the 1-2, and it's rather simple. You can go behind him, and he will do a butt stomp. Dark Souls 2 added a lot in terms of animations and how enemies attack and their animations. Rather interesting. Many enemies will have an attack that will surprise you if you try and get them at the rear. These are an example of that. Also, the ironclad knights will roll on their back if you try and backstab them or approach from the back. Oh god. That's us dead, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we're dead. You can see how he... Oh! You can see how he truly chews on your head. But yeah, Dark Souls 2 really went into and tried to invent the wheel in terms of animations. The parry animation, the backstab animation, and I like it. I really like it for that. And of course, Dark Souls 3 kind of returned to the old format and how Dark Souls 1 did things. And due to these changes and other changes, people don't really like Dark Souls 2, amongst many other reasons. Oh god, we look terrible. We look horrendous now. I will admit, Dark Souls 2 is the least polished Dark Souls game. But as someone who's been around the community for a very long time, for 10 years, and was involved in the hype and the community when Dark Souls 2 was announced, or when it was just a rumour, and as I was following the development, and just can sympathise with the team that was left with making Dark Souls 2 a complete package. I've come to appreciate it, and I've always appreciated it. Dark Souls 2 definitely needs to be remade. It definitely needs to get the Demon Souls treatment. We need to have a Dark Souls 2 2, 100%. But will we ever get that? I don't know. But I always thought the Demon Souls remake was a fool's hope, but we got that in the end. So never say never, basically. Never say never. I do advise, if you weren't around the community at the time, definitely go back and watch the Dark Souls 2 reveal trailers, gameplay trailers, and the best trailer to date, hands down in the Soulsborne franchise, is the Dark Souls 2 announcement trailer. Now, it is a CGI trailer. It does not reflect the final product at all, but as I said, as someone who has been around since the beginning and thought we were going to get the product that we eventually didn't get due to many reasons, complications, lighting systems, Project Beast, and internal problems with From Software, that trailer makes me excited but also sad, and it's just such a cool trailer. It gives me chills and it makes me a bit emotional till this day. So if you've watched that trailer, you can hopefully relate. If you haven't, it's the announcement trailer uploaded on the 10th of December 2012. Again, so many years now, nearly soon to be 10 years ago, as of next year. So that's a scary thought. I've been playing these games for too many years. But they never get old. What does get old though is this thing. So we're gonna take him out, or attempt to. I'll try and show off his. There we go. His butt stomp. And due to our low adaptability, which is something we will talk about when we come to leveling up, we kind of move slow, we do things slow, and adaptability is another thing that people don't like. I will completely agree that the inclusion of soul memory was a bad idea, and they tried to mitigate this problem by introducing certain items so players wouldn't be affected by soul memory. And again, I've referenced it. I think I've referenced it. Illusionary Walls' video on Dark Souls 2 Dissected. He's made 3, I believe. He talks about Soul's memory in the first episode. So if you're unfamiliar with the mechanic and the system, or maybe you are familiar with it, you just don't understand it, which is perfectly reasonable, because Dark Souls, the series, isn't alien to having obscure and quirky mechanics. Definitely watch Illusory Walls' video, and definitely just watch his channel, as he's an excellent content creator and has been round and digging into the game's files for years now, for many years. So I can't have enough high praise to say about Illusionary War, because his content is fantastic and I always enjoy it. Anyway, the Cyclops hippo thing, forgotten the name, dropped a stone ring. The stone ring reads, "The beloved ring of the gallant, shieldless Lothian. Formerly of Ferosa, hits greatly, reduces enemy poise. The effect may seem trivial, but for those who can comprehend how critical it is to exploit the hole in enemy defense, the significance of this ring will be clear." Now, shieldless Lothian, I believe there are other items that reference him, and the land known as Ferosa, the Fallen Kingdom, is also something that is widely referenced through the many item descriptions in this game. Again, the Faram Knights are knights of Ferosa, or former knights of Ferosa. When Ferosa fell, many of its knights became mercenaries, which then got hired by different kingdoms, and we will see, hopefully we may get to a headless mercenary a bit later on, who has some excellent dialogue and an excellent voice actor, and we shall equip it. There we go. Again, sometimes can't get my words out. I hate it, as I specialise in content that has to discuss, and the pronunciation of names and areas is especially important in lore, and sometimes I can't do it, and it angers people, and I'm sorry. I can't say words sometimes. As I said, it's more annoying for me than it is for you. But yeah, here we see that crack, that crevice in the cave. As I said, it looks like a certain something that we were all born from. So no more on that unless I get demonetized by YouTube. We will be getting the binoculars, because if you're familiar with me, you do know the binoculars are the best item, I think, in all the Souls games, as it enables me to look at the nitty-gritty details. So we'll be getting them shortly. As we exit the tree, we are still encased inside of what seems to be a cave, but if you look closely, you'll see that the walls behind the tree are yet again wood. So trees within trees. If you're familiar with Dark Souls 1, you know about the Great Hollow. This isn't anything new that we're seeing. So really interesting. We see this stone tablet. Bonfires are places of respite. You may also light torches on them. Again, this mechanic of torches, light and dark. The lighting engine was scrapped. I believe I've already referenced this, or I could be incorrect if I haven't, but Crobat's video comparing the game we never got from the E3 gameplay compared to the final product. Definitely go watch that video. I will leave it linked in the description. And yeah, the lighting mechanic had to be scrapped because the game was unplayable in certain areas and they couldn't get a consistent frame rate. They also had other things like different physics engine, I believe, and this is also evident in that gameplay reveal from all those years ago. So yeah, really sad when you compare the two, but there's pros and cons to both versions of the game. We get a torch and a lost soul of undead, and this part in it just teaches you, the player, that hey, environments are destructible and they may take one or two more hits. So just be careful. If you see an item, you might be able to break the object that obstructs it, rather than just roll through it. Because in Dark Souls 1, you'll be familiar with just rolling through everything. This one, in Dark Souls 2, you have to hit things most of the time. The effect of lighting the bonfire I absolutely love, as the embers kind of flutter out in a circle, in a dome encompassing the fire. It's just brilliant. We shall light a torch and we shall head on. And we see the light shining down upon us from the questionable crack in the cave's wall. We also see there are many other trees that we can enter, and there are sconces that we can light. Now in Skull of the First Sin, I believe they added this in. I didn't mean that to rhyme, but it did. if you light all the sconces, you'll be invaded by an NPC. Now, I don't think this was in the original, again, because I played so much of Scholar of the First Sin. Some of my memory between the original and Scholar of the First Sin has been affected, so I often get mixed up between the two. I'll claim or think that one was in this game when it isn't, and it was actually in the original game and vice versa. So if I get items or enemy placements mixed up, forgive me. I played too much of both versions of the game, and I've been around for a long time, and my mind's cracked due to just how much these games I've played, and they all merged into one. Same problem with the Dark Souls 1 remaster, although nothing really changed in that remaster, and you can't really call it a remaster just to kind of shit on it again. I often get sometimes confused between the two, because there were some subtle changes between the original. Anyway, we shall enter these trees, and we will see what lies in wait. We see there's more stone tablets. Again, these serve as the tutorial messages. Instead of being placed on the ground like Dark Souls 1, they are now on these nicely squared off pieces of stone, and we see this texture, this writing. Now, if you want to call them runes, this lettering is not seen elsewhere in Dark Souls. I don't know what, I don't want to say that, but it's not the kind of Nordic runes you've seen on Titanite in Dark Souls 1. This is a new language, and I don't think this can be deciphered in any way. It's just gibberish, essentially. But the sigil above the writing and the writing itself can be seen on the Victor's Stone, I believe, in Majula, and that we will explore in a sec. Well, after we finish the things betwixt. You can see the hollows wear the same imported tunic that we did, so presumably these are other travellers to the past who've gone hollow pretty quickly, and now they are an obstacle to those who come after. Though just really interesting detail that we are fighting those who have failed on their quest. They fell at the first hurdle, so to speak. Again, me talking about Aldia, for those who are familiar with this game, we see yet another hippo ogre thing, and it is overlooking a coffin. Now that coffin is excellent. Again, everyone knows what it does now, but in the beginning it was hilarious to hear people's stories. Hours after they've hopped out of this coffin, they take off their helmets, they take off their armour, and they realise their sex has changed, as that is the sex changing coffin. You can turn male or female depending what you originally started with, and yeah, it will mostly keep your features the same, your hairstyle and whatnot for the most part, but you may have certain assets that you once didn't. Really, really cool. You can see that we can obviously go there with the fog wall, and we just get to see the size and scale of these trees. Very reminiscent, of course, of the arch trees found within Ash Lake, and of course the arch trees are offsprings of the original arch, the stone arch trees that were destroyed by the witch and her daughters of chaos, and out of the ashes grew the wooden versions. And again, forest fires and controlled forest fires are often, well, are a thing, because the ash kind of rejuvenates the soil, and then life can spring from the ash. Again, if you're familiar with Harry Potter, phoenixes rising from the ash, life being born from death. As I mentioned, a certain crack within the wall, life being born, is an example of that. This reproduction cycle. All things to consider. There's a lot of... Oh, my torch went out. That's what happens when you talk too much. A lot of symbolism within Dark Souls is built around that, so it makes great for kind of comparing. And you may not get something on your first playthrough, and you learn something anew about symbolism or history when you play Souls again, and guess what? You have a new perspective on life, and you have something to compare to. And you start viewing things differently when you play these games, and it's great. We can see there. I presume that... I'm unsure if that that phantom is... Oh, he hit us. Is a character or is an NPC phantom. NPC phantoms aren't unique to Dark Souls, and I can't remember if they appear in Dark Souls 1, but in Demon Souls, when you're in the Forlorn Outpost, or that's what it was named in the remake, there is a NPC phantom that kind of shows you the way it runs up some stairs. And again, Illusory Wall kind of plays with this and shows this off in his Demon Souls compare through. The episode 2 is currently out, time of recording, so definitely go watch that. And when you spawn in the things betwixt, there's a phantom that instantly runs ahead through the tall grass. So I'm not too sure if that phantom was that same phantom kind of showing us through the level. Again, Illusory Wall may have shown this off in his Dark Souls 2 dissected videos, but I can't remember. It's been a while since I've watched them. Projectiles, pretty good. Bow builds are very viable in this game, I will say, more so than the first. So it's excellent to try and do. I've never done one personally, but I will say definitely invest in a bow or think about a bow, because there's a certain area in the game called Shrine of Amana. I've already referenced it when talking about Lobos Jr.
You, give us smooth.
You'll need a bow for that area.
Yes,
That's all I'll say.
Give us silky.
Now this is the crows, again, something reoccurring from Dark Souls 1. However, they work a bit better. We're a bit more refined in Dark Souls 2, as you don't have to quit the game in order to get your item. You can just make sure you leave your item, not discard it. Discard it will delete it. You drop your item.
Yeah. So nice, so smooth. Yeah. Silky smooth.
I didn't actually read the petrified something description, so forgive me.
You. Yes.
But we will get more, hopefully. Oh, when we were gifted a Titanite slab. That is excellent. I'll stand a bit further away. I don't want those crows squawking in my ear. Oh, what am I doing? Forgive me. I'm terrible with menus in these games, even after playing them for so long. They change. Every game they slightly change, and it always throws me off. Anyway, I was talking about runes, and we can see it on the tutorial stones there, that it isn't the same that can be found on the Titanite slabs. These are Nordic runes, and again, I did do a video, if this is your first time watching, on the runes on Titanite and what they mean. The title of that video is Titanite is the Story of Creation, and that's all I'll say for that, so please go watch it for yourself. There's many other connections I make with Titanite. The Titanite slab used to reinforce equipment. Yeah, God, I butchered that. Titanite slab used to reinforce equipment. Reinforces equipment up to plus 10. So plus 10 is the max that you can take a weapon in this game. There's no plus 15. Titanite was discovered in an ancient layer of earth. It is said to be a gift of the gods, one of the original slabs that provided the world with all forms of Titanite. Titanite slabs were created to smith the weapons of the gods, or so the legends say. So Titanite was discovered in an ancient layer, as I've discussed. Dark Souls 2 and its theme of kingdoms being built on top of kingdoms, rising and falling, rising and falling. Of course, the further down you go into the earth, the further back in history you will also go. So go down further enough, and there's a motorbike that's now passed and ruining my recording. Thank you, Mr. Motorbike. Further down you go, you'll eventually reach the layer of the ancients, and that's where Titanite was discovered. We've also just gained 200 souls there. Thank you, game. So yeah, just really, really cool. And as we know, the blacksmith deity smithed weapons for other gods, and the Titanite slabs, when peeled, could receive special enchantment, special elements. But you could also get different slabs infused with different elements. You know, the magic, the blue Titanite slab, the red Titanite slab, and the white Titanite slab. So again, please watch my video on Titanite as I go more into that. Anyway, we'll kick down this.
You, give it smooth.
No, stop talking to me. Stop it. They're very irritating in this game, I find. Oh, we don't need to do that. We can jump down. And there we go. I have a nameless soldier. Now, as I mentioned, Aldir is the brother of King Bendrick. King Bendrick was, and technically, supposedly, I suppose you could think he still is the ruler of Drang Lake, although he is absent. And we find a soldier here. So could this have been a man of Vendrick? As we do find things belonging to his brother Aldir. And they do work independently of each other, but they did once work together. So could this corpse be a result of that? Could this be just another corpse of a soldier from another land? Could it be a falconer? Could it be a man from Volgan? We don't know. Could it be a Ferosa knight? Could be anyone. We'll go in this one. Again, you don't have to do this. You can just trot on ahead. But it is sometimes fun to do these because I don't always do these. I use a wired Nintendo Switch controller. It cost me 20 quid from Game. Game is the retailer we have in the UK. Although not for very long, I don't think. They got recently 30% of the company was sold to a company called Sports Direct, which sells sports gear and sports equipment and everything and anything to do with sports, as well as big mugs that if you knock over will drench your living room. But anyway, so you'll often find some game shops inside of Sports Direct. So I don't think Game has got many years ahead of it, as it already has had a lot of reductions and size down quite considerably. As we used to have two, we used to have Game and we used to have Game Station. Both were owned by the same person, I believe, until Game Station was kind of merged with Game. And yeah, sad times. I preferred Game Station over to Game. I don't know, it had something a bit more to it. Anyway, enough about UK game retail history. No one cares about that. Nobody cares. Well, maybe you can relate. We get an amber herb. I'll jump back over. This jump used to be worth doing in the original, and I can't remember what the item held, but it was a pretty good item. And in Scholar of the First Sin, as I mentioned, changes were made to items and enemies. This jump is now basically useless if you don't require amber herb, because I believe it enables you to use miracles. Oh no! Oh god! Why was I holding A, not B? It enables you to use miracles or sorceries at a much lower level. But the side effect to that is that they're weaker for it, of course, as you're kind of bringing down the requirements. The damage suffers greatly. But, you know, it enables you to make lower level builds kind of based around that. Is this the way we went? I can't remember. We can try and parry. No, we can't parry a jumping attack. I do need a new controller, that's why I brought up the fact that Whoa, that's not what I want to do. Okay, so you see just how slow the jumping attack is. Well, for that attack anyway. Do something. I'm really rubbish at parrying in this game. I need the buckler, which I think is bucklers give you a larger parry window. I'm used to Dark Souls 2 parry times. Dark Souls 2, but Dark Souls 1. Come on. I can't parry barehanded. You know what? Sod off. Parry that, you filthy casual. Talking about PvP, me clearly sucking at basic mechanics like parrying, which is not something, not many people, I've noticed this over the years, not many people in Dark Souls 2 do parry. They often just go for the rolling. But people who do parry, of course, are the kings of PvP and combat, because parry is just king. And talking about parry kings, Ouroboros recently returned to Drang Lake after many years, and that was a great sight to see. I recently watched that. So if you're familiar with Ouroboros, that should ring a bell if you're a fan of the Souls games. as he's a legend in the PvP scenes. His quest to hate mail is iconic and got many people into PvP back in the day. The plunging mechanic is not something that you will often use because, again, to quote another creator, Saint Riot, he's recently in the past few months been doing a lot of lore throughs, where he's done Dark Souls 1, he's done Demon Souls, he's done Dark Souls 2, he's done Bloodborne, and not familiar with Dark Souls 3, but he became popular due to his PvP videos on Dark Souls 3, and I've watched him for many years now, and yeah, he's a great guy. I find him hilarious. Point being is, when he played Dark Souls 2, he discusses how useless the plunging attack is, and he's right. The plunging attack, you barely use it in this game, and there's barely any reasons to use it, because it's just awful in this game. I find it useless anyway. Someone may disagree with me on that. We have an unusual instance where there is an actual door in the tree, so I think that's pretty cool. Again, so perhaps indicating that this place may have been inhabited on a larger scale, not just where the firekeepers reside, but perhaps that, as I said, there was more people here once, maybe, for this door to exist, you know, and over time people have left and it's been forgotten, and now it's inhabited with the people who've gone hollow on their quest to enter Drang Lake. I'm not too sure. Behind the door, more importantly though, is we find a cracked red-eye orb. Defeat the master of the world. You have invaded to acquire a token of spite. The residual sins of those who have succumbed to dark temptations are contained in the form of the cracked red-eye orb. So really, really interesting there. And again, invasions and stuff is something we may be able to talk more about when we meet a certain NPC inside the Huntsman Copse, but we may not get there due to this only being a mini-series. Which does sadden me. I wish I could play more of this game, but with my release schedule and time of recording and the time of this release, an Undead Pilgrimage, which is my Dark Souls 1 lore through, won't be complete. And Elden Ring's release date is too close. You know, once Elden Ring is out of the way and I'm sick of playing it, which is hard to even comprehend that I'll be sick of playing it, but you know, it probably will happen. I'll need something different. We may return to Dark Souls 2 and do a lore through for this game, if the demand is there, of course, because I plan to make many content for Elden Ring and presumably its future DLCs. And here, a really cheeky glimpse into what you can face. We have basilisks. I said that weird. Basilisks. We're a returning enemy from Dark Souls 1, and again, where did we find them in Dark Souls 1? We found them in the depths, yes, but we also found them from the Great Hollow. That is where they called home. And the basilisks in the Great Hollow were different to the ones in the depths, as when they cursed you, the ones being in the Great Hollow, the form you would take if you were cursed was different to the ones in the depths. It had like a reddish crystallization, while the ones in the depths were black. And I believe the ones in the Great Hollow were more mean, more tougher, and their curse build-up is quicker than the ones found in the depths. I could be wrong on that, but again, just interesting that we find them in, yet again, more hollow trees. And this tree is obstructed by a petrified corpse, and in order to break this petrification, we need a fragrant branch of yore. And, you know, a branch, trees, yore, Yorm. Yorm is a giant from Dark Souls 3. So I don't know if there's any connection to be made from there. And the sense of smell as well is something that is also, well, it's a theme that can also be found in this game. And if you play Bloodborne, you'll be familiar with the kind of theme around smell, as many people address you as, oh, you have the scent of a hunter. And in this game too, I've already referenced a certain furry NPC, and she discusses our smell and the fragrant branch of yore. The smell, the sweetest smell, unpetrifies you, which is just really cool. These recurring themes throughout the games, as the game's Project Beast, which then became Bloodborne, well, was later known as Bloodborne, and Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 2, and all the DLCs were made very close together. Those 3 years, 2014, 2015, 2016, it was a good time to be a Souls player. We were having content back to back. It was fabulous. It really was. And you know, we've been on such a long drought for Elden Ring. Of course, people are thirsty for that game, and some have even gone hollow, as we know. So in here, through this crevice, through this crack, we see more trees, but yet we see the sky. So we've left kind of the limbo, and we are starting to now reach into the real world. We see many player messages, many points of death. I don't know how people have died, if this involves the summon, the phantom that spawns in if you light all the sconces, I can't remember. You will often find a illusory wall ahead message, as this one. Beware of pointless. Now, there's usually one knocking around here, and I can tell you, for any new time players, there is not illusory wall in here. Do not believe their lies. Beware of liar ahead, should I say. Praise the sun. Praise the sun indeed. So out of the dark, we are given light, and we bear witness to Medulla. Now again, this theme of reproduction and sex, where do we come out of? A questionable crack. And what is the first thing we see? An obelisk. A very questionable looking obelisk. Yeah, I'm going to leave that to you. I don't need to say that to what I'm implying there, but you know, one goes in the other. That's all I'll say. YouTube, don't demonetize me. And Medulla is just beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful. And again, this lends to people calling this game very dreamlike, as it is. You can see the music trickling. Well, you can hear the music trickling. It's beautiful. We love Medulla. But before we venture too far, we shall jump here, because I need to get my favourite item in the game. If I don't die. We get the Morning Star and Cleric Chime. We'll read those in a second. And we get the binoculars. Now the binoculars can't be equipped in your usable items in this game. They can only be equipped in your hands, which is rather unusual. And we can see there the rocks jutting out of the water. And once we go up into Medulla a bit more, we'll be able to see what is lying over there, and that is the Forest of the Fallen Giants. Binoculars are used to peer at distant sights, equipped in place of a weapon to use, a rare tool crafted in Vulcan. These won't help you in battle, but with a little creativity can be put to good use. I believe the original description from the first game states that they are, well, were crafted in Astora, I think, or maybe Xena, I can't remember, but definitely a rare and valuable item. We find we picked up the Cleric's Sacred Chime, and again, chimes have replaced talismans in this game. I've forgotten if you do get talismans instead of chimes, but chimes, obviously, they hold bells. Bells is an important theme. Again, that can be found without the Souls games. If you're familiar with Bloodborne, I shouldn't need to say more on that, but we ring the bells of awakening, Dark Souls 1. The bells chime are used as a instrument to cast miracles, and in not Demon Souls. In Bloodborne, bells can be found on the lamps that enable us to go to the Hunter's Dream, and also bells are found on many enemies, either around their neck or waist. And bells, as I mentioned in my now unlisted playthrough, well, semi-lore through kind of Halloween special of Bloodborne, which I will do another for that, definitely, as I was streaming from the PlayStation 5 and it wasn't up to quality I like, so I unlisted it, I'm afraid. Anyway, I made the point of bells are kind of used to put people in trances, and the theme of dreams and realms of reality stacked on top of each other is especially important in Bloodborne, so I made ties to bells and reality and dreams in that. But anyway, enough about Bloodborne. Cleric's Sacred Chime reads, most clerics receive this as their first sacred chime, a catalyst for miracles and hexes. Again, we get a mention of hexes. Now, hexes are basically what we found in the Chasm of the Abyss in Dark Souls 1. So hexes have become their own thing and have become outright banned and forbidden in many lands. And we will read that as we go on if we get to those points. But it's a new type of magic that you can practice in Dark Souls 2, and hexes are overpowered, much like the dark sorceries are in Dark Souls 1. Anyway, to use miracles, equip the sacred chime and attune a miracle as a bonfire. The strength of most miracles is affected by the caster's faith. And again, as I mentioned, many miracles and their roots and where they can be traced back to, and their legitimacy has been questions a lot in this game. Really cool thing. But again, it all depends on your faith. If you believe it to be true, you can cast that miracle. It doesn't matter if it was real. If you think it happened, it can happen. And this is where we go to the Forest of the Fallen Giants, but first we shall discuss Majula. And again, on the point of Forest of the Fallen Giants, From Software love to use light as an indication of progress or where to go. And here we see a sconce already lit, and we've kind of become familiar with that in the Things Betwixt. So yeah, that should pull most players down here, but often it doesn't. Many players go to High's Tower of Flame, another sconce of a sort, a much bigger one, and we'll talk about that when we get there, as I do plan to get there, as that's usually the second area many people go. But we will start kind of round the outside and work our way in to the obelisk. So this leads to the forest, the shady woods and stuff. We won't be going that way. I do want to mention though, if we stand, can we stand on this rock? Yes we can. Hello fellow player. That obsidian tower is not Barad-dûr, it is Drangleic Castle, and it's beautiful, and it's very rainy and wet over there, and that is somewhere where we won't get in this series, but that is where the throne of want lives and our eventual destination lies. We also see ruins, again very reminiscent really of Ulasil. You know, I made the connection with the gazebo in Things Betwixt, and we kind of see these colosseums. Again, that got me excited when I first played the game. I was like, my mind raced with possibilities, and then I panned my camera to this, which is an aqueduct. Now this model of aqueduct, VatiVideo made this a topic in one of his videos discussing the reuse of this model, as it's seen all throughout the Dark Souls games. They've implemented it in many places, and I can't remember the exact video, but it's very true. If you're a player of the Souls, this model will seem familiar to you. And me being a Dark Souls 1 player, of course, when I played Dark Souls 2, I thought, an aqueduct, I wonder if that's the way to go. And I got excited with the thought of having to go there and walk on top of it or through it, you know? Because walking through aqueducts was a common thing in Dark Souls 1, and we see more ruins there on the hilltops, and we see again the Great Mansion, which we'll explore. And yeah, these kind of it's a shanty town really, Majula. Repairs have been made with the wooden roofs and such, but you can probably lead to, well, I don't know if the mansion was ever finished or it's just been left a ruin. But we can see structures over there, they once had stone roofs. So if they could do it over there, then perhaps these structures once held those, similar stone roofs, but due to time and erosion, they've worn away and crumbled away and got kind of hastily replaced with wood. And yeah, Majula, what purpose it served, its history is to be speculated about, but we can see, due to the entrance to the Forest of the Fallen Giants, the side entrance there, and the archway we would have had to originally walked under, it seems this town was walled off and protected for the most part, but again, due to time, it's eroded away and the ruins have crumbled. and collapse on top of one another. Was this attacked by giants? Or, as I said, just attacked by time? The sea breeze and currents and salt water does erode many things. If you live near a sea town, your car will get rusty quicker, I believe, due to the sea air. So again, this all factors in probably to the deteriorate. I can't even say that word. The deterioration. Is that how you say it? Deterioration. Whatever. You know what I mean. In Majula. I'm still laughing about the obelisk and internally laughing. Obviously, you've not heard me laugh. And the breach in the cave. Yeah. Yeah. I don't need to say any more on that. Anyway, we won't talk about the pit just yet. We'll talk about who's in here. Now, he sat on the floor, and when we speak to him, we kind of get the notion that he's fallen on hard times. And, you know, him being sat on the floor, does that represent the whole fallen on hard times thing? Because, you know, the floor is hard. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe I'm reading too much into that. But we'll speak to him in a minute. We'll open this chest as we will be gifted a Titanite shard. Now, Titanite chunks are especially rare in this game. This game throws Titanite slabs at you, you know, pretty frequently, to be honest. It's just chunks that are the biggest worry. So don't get too excited if you're first playing this game and thinking, wow, I'm getting loads of slabs, because chunks is where you'll spend most of your time. Now, the books we see strewn about, some are opened, fallen off the... sorry, pardon me. Fallen off the shelf due to time, or someone been through here and kind of ransacked the place. Not too sure. But this book, this white book, is a real book that can be found in the real world, and it exists, and they implemented this in the game. And we see many copies of it, not just in this room and in this structure. We'll see it throughout the game. And I believe I was talking about the whole reproduction and the theme of sex and fertility. I think this book relates to that in some way. I can't remember. But it's definitely a real book that you can find and buy for yourselves. Presumably it's still able to be bought. But yeah, this was once a place where we've seen a lot of trade. It was a blacksmith's quarters. We see a wooden shield, kind of very reminiscent of the... I've forgotten the exact title, but the wooden shield that can be found in the Berg that depicts a white dragon. But except for this one has a white lion. And I think that relates to Ferosa, I think. I can't exactly remember. We see the leather shield that can be found in the Forest of Fallen Giants. Again, we'll get that later. I won't be using it. And of course, we see the busts containing armour. A ghost just levitating up the ladder. But yeah, really, really cool. But this man is no blacksmith. He's a simple trader who sells armour for souls. His name is Mulligan, I believe.
Hello there. Welcome to my shop. I'm Morlin.
Morlin, never mind. Not Mulligan.
Sell armour. Oh, sorry, Please do have a look at my wares. I could really use the business. If you'd be so kind.
So Morlin, the armourer. Again, he really needs the business. Doesn't see many customers. He sells what we already have, that being the Falconer set. I mean, we don't have the Falconer's helm, so we shall purchase that. We won't be using a shield. Well, we will, but it will be a buckler, as I do want to get into the parrying. And we shall talk to him.
I came from the west, from Volgan. Have you been there? It's a lively place, vibrant with trade. Very competitive, of course. And you have to grease the wheels to get anywhere. But I didn't have the funding for that, so I left home in hopes of striking gold. It's been years since then, and I've made very little headway. I don't even know why I'm still here. Everything's all run down and dying. It's terrible for business, really.
Again, this theme of people not knowing why they're here, even though the place has left the ruin, it's crumbling, as he says, it's dying, and yet they still remain in the carcass of this once former kingdom, and they don't really know why they're still here.
A group calling themselves the Blue Sentinels have gained much power in Volgan. You can't even run a shop without their blessing. They claim to be working for the greater good, but it's absolute hogwash.
So the Blue Sentinels is a name we'll find, and something we can actually, well, depending on the item, if we get it, we can actually join them. Blue Sentinels have a big, what's the word? They have a big presence within Hyde. So really interesting, it seems. If you're not on the right side of them, they can make your life difficult. As Morlin said, you need money to grease the wheels. If you haven't got those funds as an up-and-coming starting business, you'll be pushed out by the bigger fish. So people who can't afford to live that life, or don't want their fingers and toes chopped off, I guess, they leave in search of business elsewhere in outward lands. But yeah, Volgan is it's great to imagine Volgan. Rich, bustling with life and trade, many people from different walks of life, but of course it's all just a facade, deep below. Well, not even that deep, it's all skin deep. If one just pays attention, you'll see that it's probably riddled with corruption and backstabbing and everything and anything that goes along with that, paying the guards, paying the falconers to go and ruffle up your rivals. I can imagine it's not a very nice place to live if you were born there, but for a traveller it probably seems quite a pleasant place, an exciting place. But of course, as I said, there are dangers that lie in the many alleys and corners of that city. I can only imagine. Again, this is nowhere in the game. I just like doing this with these games, imagining things that don't really matter. But it's what makes these games so good, is that you can do that.
Oh, by the gods, why the hell am I here? Thanks very much. And do please come again.
So the more money you spend on Morlin, the larger his inventory. Yeah, the larger his inventory. So he will sell you boss gear. So again, always come back here. I think the amount to get him to open up more is like 2,000 or 4,000 souls, I believe. So we may have to spend a bit more money on him to see more items in his inventory. But yeah, always check back with him. Check if he's got boss items and stuff. Some of them are pretty cool, but very heavy. Pardon me, very heavy usually. Right, my voice is going. I need another drink. God, I can't speak. I need another drink to lubricate my vocal cords. So I'll be back in a flash. Okay, guys, I'm back. Got a drink. Pint of Vimto to be precise. Gotta love Vimto. It's just too good. So we'll leave Morlin, or Mulligan as I named him, in his little shack there, and we'll explore what else can be found. So we will try the door of this mansion, but yet we find it's locked. So we'll come back to that much later, as the NPC who holds the key can be found in Forest of the Fallen Giants. And here we start to see kind of interesting ways to interact with the environment. If the stone is hit, a corpse shall appear, and on it holds an Estus/shard. Now we shall read it over here, because I don't want to aggro what's round that corner, and we'll get to them when we get to them. Where's the... It's there. It's right there. Never mind. So, in Dark Souls 2, you don't need a Firekeeper's Soul in order to reinforce your Estus Flasks. You just need a shard. Now, of course, Estus Flasks were... We haven't got one yet, actually. We'll be given one in a... Well, shortly, when we eventually go over there. Estus Flasks were created from Firekeeper's Souls. So from these shards of flasks that were made from Firekeeper's Souls, we are able to reinforce our own flask. The shard of an Estus Flask. Shards are deeply soaked in Estus. Graft the shard to an Estus Flask to increase flask uses. Over the ages, countless souls rested their bones as they drank from the original flask, and now this shard remains, serving as a vestige of their hopes and dreams. So again, rather interesting. Firekeepers and their use seems to have phased out. I can't speak for Vendrick's reign and rule and time during the Age of Fire, but you know, we've speculated of how long the Firekeepers within the Things Betwixt have been around for. During, were they born? If they can be born, if we think of Firekeepers like that way. But yeah, I think they are human up until their power is discovered, and then they are used for something else. But anyway, massive tangent. Do the old women predate King Vendrick's reign is my point. How old are these Firekeepers? What age of fire did they come from? As I've mentioned, many kingdoms have risen and fallen, many ages of fire have been snuffed out and then rekindled. So, which one do they come from? And this this description of the original flask is interesting. So, are flasks handed down? Those 3 Firekeepers over there, are they a dying breed? Any more Firekeepers found, or could be found, theoretically, in Drang Lake? Or maybe other parts of the world, but they usually inhabit, you know, the realm of the lords, or former lords, as that's where things keep re-happening, and where life first emerged and flame first appeared, and that's where the souls find new masters and such. Anyway, so these flasks, there may not be very many of them about. There may be a limited number. Through the ages, of course, many uses they've cracked and broke, and now shards only remain of the original flasks. And if you're lucky enough to find these shards, and you're even more lucky enough to actually own an Estus Flask of your own, you can graft these shards to a flask so you can drink more Estus, which is basically liquidated fire, isn't it? So really interesting to think about. Firekeepers being a dying breed, Estus Flasks being made from a Firekeeper's soul, and how that may affect the use of Estus. As we know in Dark Souls 1, Estus Flasks are used, you know, quite regularly by the Hollows. Many Lordran soldiers use them. Of course, the Undead has one, and other NPCs. I think, yeah, the Hollow Thieves, I think, also use them in Lower Undead. I could be wrong with that, but anyway, a lot of people have them. So a lot of Firekeepers were either killed, sacrificed, or, you know, naturally died, and then their souls were repurposed in order to make a flask. But of course, that was many ages ago, and thousands of years ago. So just really cool to think about. Anyway, what lies in wait down here are 3 little piggies. Now, very unusual enemy to find in Majula. In one of the gameplay trailers, as I've been watching them again today, so it's fresh on the mind, there are larger piggies that attack the... No, actually, in Crobat's video, where he compares the E3 gameplay of the version of the game we never got. The character in the old gameplay is hit off, presumably, the wall of the Forest of Fallen Giants into the ocean below. And the pigs that hit him off are much larger, but there is 3 of them, I think. And I've forgotten if... Yeah, I think in certain New Game cycles, maybe New Game 7, maybe less, maybe more, these pigs grow to be bigger. There's also another pig that can be found, and that pig can be used to dig up a special, well, fairly special item, the pickaxe. But again, you have to lead them down to that location. It can be very finicky. I've only ever done it once. But yeah, just again, quirky mechanic, interesting. Just another example of Dark Souls being Dark Souls, kind of absurd and a bit weird. And these pigs hit like a truck. They do a lot of damage. And there's no real point in killing them, I don't think. I mean, we'll kill one just to see how many souls it gives us. Yeah, 20. 20 souls you get. So it's really not worth the effort. If you really want to kill them, you can kite them. We'll light the bonfire. We'll talk about the bonfire in a minute. I just need to reset myself. Oh, don't want to do that. If you really want to kill them, you can kite them so they fall into the pit. But again, for 20 souls, it's not really worth the effort. Now, this pit, there is dialogue surrounding this pit from two characters, one which eventually sits here, and one which resides near the obelisk. It's basically where people throw their unwanted items, whatever that may be. We see corpses down here. Now, does that mean people got thrown down here, or did they fall down here? It's up to you to speculate. But we also see these carved statues, these figures of a woman, a hooded woman. Now, this woman has caused many a fan favourite theory, some wild, some, you know, fairly tame, of who this could be. People, one that really sticks in my mind, doesn't mean that I think it's true, but I just remember this from back in the day. People believe this to represent the Emerald Herald, which is situated just over there. We'll talk to her in a sec. Due to the poison that they can spit. Again, these ones don't spit poison, but that can be interpreted as, you know, telling lies, and kind of the quest given to the bearers of the curse. You know? So remember that. There's many other connections people make to this being the Emerald Herald. There's also, due to the person who can be seen attempting to create one, if we want to call that, or repair one, people believe the woman who's depicted here to be related to that individual being the Rotten. Yeah, I don't know, to be honest, but it could also represent, because the DLC, Shulva, the Sunken City, again, we unfortunately won't be able to get to experience that in this mini-series, but there are certain NPCs in there who this could also represent. And again, for a first-time player, I don't like jumping the gun and mentioning names that many people won't be able to familiarise themselves with if they haven't played Dark Souls 2, or haven't, you know, completed it, or not that familiar with it. So I will be mostly talking about lore that we are encountered, but there are some instances where I'll obviously reference things that we may not get to reach for ourselves in this mini-series. But for the Shulva and stuff, I'll just leave it there. Please go play the game. Shulva, the Sunken City, is my favourite DLC of Dark Souls 2. I love that DLC to death. It's fantastic. Anyway, inside this shack, we find a cat. A cat sitting on a stool. Again, quite disturbing, really, if you saw your real cat do this. It's a huge cat, so presumably it's a Maine Coon. If you know the Maine Coon breed of cats, they are massive, bigger than most small breed of dog, and they're lovely. They're a lovely type of cats. I've had some myself. My family has anyway. Anyway, we will talk to this blue-eyed cat.
Oh, undead are we? And one without much time remaining. Just about ready to fall apart, I'd say. Not exactly the time to be chatting with a cat. Well, suit yourself. Oh yes, You may call me Shalqua. Enchanté. So, what did you want anyway? Ooh, you smell wonderful.
Again, there's that theme of smell, that mention of smell, as I said. And she's called Sweet Shalqua, or Shaliqua, however you say her name. It's very, yeah. She's a very interesting character. Sweet could also reference, smell, or sweet kind of being sarcastic because she's not really sweet, is she? She's kind of, her compliments are like double-edged swords, She's been around for a while. That's all we'll say. We'll get more on this character when we speak to the Firekeeper, sorry, the Emerald Herald. She does have some dialogue about this furry individual. The item she sells is rings. Now, the first one is the Ring of the Evil Eye. Eyes, again, being an especially important theme found throughout the Souls games, especially in Demon Souls and especially in Dark Souls. And even in Dark Souls, and especially in Bloodborne. That's what I meant to say, but it can be found in Dark Souls. We use red eye orbs, we use blue eye orbs, we use black eye orbs. The abyss, when someone is... what's the word? When they are exposed... well, when they are in the presence of abyss for too long, they grow many eyes, which relates to the people of Ulyssil, the sorcerers, and the normal folk. The abyss mutated them. Their heads became these wooden balls, these kind of rooty wooden balls. The sorcerers have wheat and plants growing out their face. Again, these are observations I made in my Undead Pilgrimage, so please go watch that, which is my lore through for Dark Souls 1. Again, it's a sign that even though it is dark, it can breed life. It can form life, which also links into other themes surrounding dark and it being a creator of life. Anyway, not to get on too much into the abyss, but the Ring of the Evil Eye. The abyss, again, caused people to grow many eyes. Manus also has many eyes, although they are red eyes. And this eye isn't mentioned to be red, but there is a ring that is called the Red Eye Ring, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a slitted eye, much like a cat, much like a serpent. The primordial serpents also have slitted eyes. We will read the description: a modest but inexplicably disturbing ring. Absorb HP for each enemy defeated. Peer too closely at the rare stone that forms the eye of this ring, and things that writhe and stir may come into focus. So, is this rare stone, is it humanity in a sense? Has it been influenced by humanity? Is it made of pure humanity? And by peering into its eye, things writhe and stir. So presumably, again, the humanity inside of the user is... what's the word? I don't want to say unlocked, but... yeah, basically, it's stirred. That's basically the best way to put it. Much like Manus, he was tested upon by the sorcerers of Ulyssil, and his humanity became uncontrollable. It consumed him and turned him into the Father of the Abyss, and he took the form of Manus that we know him as. So potentially the same can happen to those who peer into this eye. This eye is also found in the depths in Dark Souls 1, and it's in an area that is surrounded by basilisks. Basilisks drop the Eye of Death. The Eye of Death is an item used to level up in the Gravelord Covenant in Dark Souls 1. That's Nito's Covenant. And in Dark Souls 1, this item has the description that a terrible beast attacked a storer. So, from that description and from this description in this game, we can determine that a human, so it happened in the time of humans, the time of the Dark Soul. Well, when the Dark Soul, because humans existed due to the Vertipigme splitting this Dark Soul throughout humanity. Anyway, someone peered into this ring, and the humanity inside them writhed and stirred and turned them into a terrible beast, which then attacked Astora. And in Dark Souls 3, rings and Pontiff Sullivan and people staring into rings and becoming beasts is also a theme that is continued. So just really interesting topic. Long tangent there, I know. As I said, as I've mentioned in my Undead Pilgrimage, the longer I talk, the less sense I make. So forgive me if I just speak gibberish and it comes out as nonsensical, just rambles. Forgive me. I've got too much information on all the games. They sometimes get moulded into one. Anyway, Silver Ring depicted a leaping feline, reduces damage from falling. Legend has it that when cats grow old, a force brews within them, and they are reborn as something new. Now, is that something new a new entity, or is that something new a new cat? You know, they take another form of a cat. So, again, the age of Shaliqua is also mentioned, and she's extremely old. She's potentially, and I believe her to be older than the Firekeepers. Shaliqua also has commentary on the Firekeepers themselves. Anyway, we know cats, cats have 9 lives and such, so is that also factored into this kind of rebirth? Maybe. She can only be reborn 9 times. So, yeah, we can see the ring is very, very expensive. We also have pants of the feline. I've forgotten if they're not called that, but I don't know, they might be called that, but they also reduce falling damage, and I've forgotten where you acquire them in this game. Anyway, we have the Red Eye Ring. Again, another mention of eyes. A cursed ring depicting a demon eye. Now, demons, and the use of the word demon is, it changed a lot in development. I talked about this in an Undead Pilgrimage. We have demon foliage found in Darkroot Garden. Again, demon foliage were once the caretakers. I've forgotten the serfs, I believe, is their correct enemy name found in the DLC. Anyway, they were once the caretakers of the Royal Garden of Ulusil, and then they became the demon foliage. We have demon titanites, and of course we have the actual race of demons. Came about by the Chaos Flame and the Bed of Chaos, and people of Izalith embracing demon culture. And here we have the Red Eye Ring, a cursed ring depicting a demon eye. So when they say demon eye, what does it mean? Does it mean, the demons that we mostly think about, the demons from the first game, or does it mean something else in this instance? Anyway, we don't know. Becomes easier to be detected by enemies. If it is tranquility that you seek, then you should never have left your home. If you seek strife, then fair enough, but no need to overdo it. So easier to be detected by enemies. I think this just means you get aggroed. If you were to put this ring and you were co-oping, enemies would aggro on you more than they would your partner. Speaking of demons, though, the reason why I brought this up is because the next ring is the named engraved ring. Now, I'll just hover over it, because when you hover over it, it flashes. It's hard to see what's actually going on. But the name engraved ring, the runes etched onto its face, and its overall shape is very reminiscent to the demon Titanite. Now, the demon Titanite spawned from the Titanite slabs when the blacksmith deity passed. And this is the named engraved ring. Easy to connect to players who choose the same god, Now, the blacksmith made weapons for other gods. He also, it's theorized, in my belief, he's also involved potentially with many other gods. His identity is definitely fun to think about, and I believe he has connections to Izalith and, of course, the City of the Gods. And he created the stone tablets, which are also the Titanite slabs. And on those slabs are runes which tell a story. And for those who haven't yet watched my Titanite, The Story of Creation, I won't spoil it, but please go watch that. It gives you more context into who I believe the Titanite deity to be, and his history and his past and his death. I have much more to talk about on that topic and that deity, because he ties in with other areas, as I mentioned, and demons and Izalith being one of them. Anyway, description. A special ring that can be engraved with the name of a god. becomes easier to connect to worlds of players who choose the same god. There are countless vestiges of long-lost gods in the ruins of Drang Lake, or perhaps they are the very same gods as ours, only known by different names. And again, as I talked about, so much time has passed, kingdoms have risen and fallen, gods may take multiple names, even though they are the same deity. And this may be many different reasons. They've purposely decided to take different identities, or their worshippers have disagreed on the scriptures and belief systems and named the different things. Or again, just time and the amnesia of humanity playing a part into that. And we get the Ring of Whispers, ring worn by Roy the Explorer. Hear the inner voices of surrounding foes, useful for locating hidden enemies and perhaps for a few other things as well. This ring is vital if you want to communicate with a certain scorpion, let's just say, that many people believe to be Black Iron Tarkus from Dark Souls 1. And yeah, we won't talk much more about that because, as I said, I don't want to mention too many things if new players are introduced to this game via my series. I want you to explore and discover it on your own. She sells Homeward Bone, a white ashen bone. Return to last bonfire rested at. Bonfires burn on the bones of undead, and this bone, belonging to one whose journey was cut short, has the power to travel to bonfires as if it yearns to resume its futile quest. We have the Prism Stones, a slightly warm rock, emits a beautiful phasing aura of 7 colours with very rare 8th. The Prism Stone does nothing special, but if you feel you may lose your way, it can serve as a path marker. We have the Alluring Skull. Now, this is pretty useless, I think, in this game. I can't remember, but I've never really used it that much in this game. I used it a few times in Dark Souls 1, but I think it's more useless in this game than previous games. Anyway, a Skull of Unknown Ownership. Smash it to release traces of souls, which attract nearby foes. Does not work on all enemies, but can prove useful in unexpected ways. And the Lloyd's Talisman. Talisman used by Cleric Knights. Block Estus recovery within a limited area. It is said that the Cleric Knights use these talismans to hunt down accursed undead. Cleric Knights fight with pride, and by blocking recovery of undead, they can also fight with impunity. So, almost the same as the description that we found in Dark Souls 1, and nothing, it doesn't really add much more. The Lloyd is still mentioned, whether he's seen as a god, and the uncle of Gwyn, I can't remember if his heritage is referenced, his lineage is referenced in this game or not. In Dark Souls 3, he's thought to be a conman, a con artist, a fake false prophet. Many item descriptions go into people questioning and outright just denying his existence. Actually, the denying of existence links in with an item
Nothing suited you, I presume?
in this game, and that's by the Academy of Melfia. They outright deny Guinevere's existence, which I think is really cool.
Who are you again? No, I'm not serious. You do have a rather pleasant scent.
Why, thank you.
Type I'm quite fond of.
And you know, why is that? What's our scent? Does she wish to feast on our face as we sleep? Because, you know, cats eat meat and we're like undead meat. I don't know. But you've not joined any covenants?
This place is already dead. Everything will crumble and waste away so that something new may be born. Isn't it wonderful?
Again, this theme of rebirth, of recycle, of rising from the ashes.
This place is fascinating. We receive only the most peculiar visitors. Folk like yourself. It's enough to keep even a cat amused. Are you going to see the old ones? Those 4 who have grown so incredibly ancient. They must have sprouted quite a thick coat of moss by now. For heaven's sake, no one even knows their names anymore. Imagine that. Yes, Nothing like yourself. For you have a most pleasant scent. It grows nicer with each passing day.
Yeah, very strange, but important dialogue there, as I mentioned earlier. I referenced earlier that we will get some revolving around the Firekeepers. They are referred to as ancient, so incredibly ancient. She referenced them as the old ones, and that they are so old their names have all been but forgotten. So presumably they might be even older than Shaliqua, which is just fascinating. And again, as I said, are they older than King Vendrick's reign and his kingdom, Drang Lake? How far back do these ancient ones go? As the term ancient in Dark Souls can really vary depending on the subject and person. Ancient could imply 1,000 years, or ancient could imply a couple of years. Not a couple of years, several hundred years. It really depends, and it makes it kind of annoying when trying to decipher the lore and form a timeline, as it can be quite inconsistent from my personal experience, trying to piece things together.
Have you made friends with the man by the sea? He's lost everything. Absolutely everything. The only thing he's good for now is a few tidbits on covenants. Covenants are a type of, well, contract, you might say. You give something to gain something. That's the way humans like it, right? It might be just the thing you need. But what does a cat know?
She refers to, humans. So, of course, she isn't human because she's a cat. But was she ever human? The talking cats, this isn't the first time we've seen one in the Souls game. If you're familiar with Dark Souls 1, you'll know Alvina. However, that cat speaks with a much more of a purring tongue. She's much more cat-like than this one. So it's rather interesting. Perhaps sweet Shalqua, however you say her name, is a reincarnation of Alvina. All this time passed. She's like the Doctor. She just regenerates after every season. After every cycle of the fire, she regenerates and takes on a new identity while forgetting her old identity. I don't know. I'm completely making this up, as you can probably tell.
Nothing suited you, I presume? Well, that's dismay.
Yeah. You find a life gem. Don't give up. Don't give up, skeleton. And again, more ruins, except for we see stairs leading down into the rock, and that is where we can find Hyde if we follow that path, but we shall not be doing that. Now here is the Victor's Stone. Pick up a homeward bone, or 5 of them, and as I mentioned earlier in the tutorial area, it's the exact same texture as what can be seen from the tutorial slabs. So just really, really cool. Except for this one has been encased by roots. Essentially, the wood has bent over the stone. Very strange, the shape that it's taken. But it has a beautiful view of Majula. And again, the obelisk, and we see the NPC there, head in his hands. It's great. So the Victor's Stone. Enter the Covenant. This will set you upon an arduous path. Do you wish to join? Are you prepared to join? Join the Covenant. See how it gives you many messages. Just double checking you want to join. as this covenant makes the game a little bit harder. Champion's Tablet. Show the name of the greatest victors of the Company of Champions Covenant. This tablet, chiselled from the victor's stone, is engraved with the names of the brave warriors who have offered the most ore stones, as if they were epitaphs honouring their lives. So we use this item and we shall get a list. So there we go. If any of you are these names, congratulations. Well done on your many stones. Oh god, I nearly backspaced off the edge then. So yeah, perhaps these etchings... Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Perhaps these etchings are names, you know, of former victors. Champions of the Covenant. Right, we'll probably leave this Covenant in a short second because we'll have to join another one in order to get an item. Again, the Medulla music, it's so tranquil. It's beautiful. I remember in the early days as well when Dark Souls 2 just came out. Obviously people like to upload the music, you know, create half an hour or 1 hour full loops. But the Medulla music, and I believe Cole Ross from the Bonfire's Side Chat podcast talks about this. Due to how the theme for Medulla is composed, it's not so easy to loop. I remember him just having some commentary on that. And yeah, if you find very early loops of Medulla on YouTube from like 2014, you'll kind of see this, that they're not as clean, as precise, as fluid as other loops. You know, useless bit of tidbit, you know, useless information there. No, you're not going to do anything with that, but just if anyone can relate to that, then yeah, that one's for you, I guess. We see Leningrast. Now, oh my god, it's because of Dark Souls 1. Right, there we go. I'm going to keep wasting life gems. Now, Leningrast, he's a blacksmith. On top of his head is a kind of circlet of some sort, or maybe just a fastened band, I'm not too sure. He's sat here looking rather glum, twiddling his fingers, and you can see in his beard there is a gold, I don't know what to call that, gold ring, I don't know, bit of fashion, got a bit of that dwarven look going on, and he's locked out. He can't get in. And again, he can't get in because someone's locked it, but you know, he could easily just kind of hop the wall and get in, but it's Dark Souls, NPCs don't act like that. And he's not rather pleased.
Who are you? Oh, it doesn't matter. Just help me open this door. I packed my tools in here, seeing it was vacant. But now somebody's gone and locked the door.
So, Leningrast, he's fairly recent. He's not been here for a while. Morlin, he could, you know, I think he's been here longer than Leningrast. I'm not too sure what NPC's been here the longest, as Shaliqua, that's what I'm going to keep calling her, because if that's not a proper name, how you say her name, you know what I'm like. It'll never happen. She has some dialogue when she spoke about how this place is dying, kind of implying that she's new to the area. Do you know what I mean? Like it's a surprise to her or a recent observation. So she seems pretty recent. Morlin seems recent, yes, but I think he's been here for a while, because he said he set off years ago from Volgan. That doesn't mean he's been in Drang Lake for years. We don't know how far away Volgan is and how long of a travel that would be. Kale, spoilers, which is the NPC which holds the key to the mansion, has also been and come to Medulla pretty recently. Leningrast, of course, pretty recent. We have the NPC up there, Solden, and again, he could have been here for a while, as he has dialogue. Yeah, I think he's been here the longest, honestly. Except for the Emerald Herald, of course, because she's been here forever. Oh wow, do you see how that texture kind of popped in then. I don't know if that was just a trick, actually. Yeah, I think that's happening, yeah. Anyway, whatever. Stop messing with things. So we'll free Leningrad. Well, we'll open Leningrad's shop soon because there's an NPC that holds the key for that, an opportunist. And that NPC has interesting hands, that's all I'll say. So, sat at the base of the obelisk is an Arbor Knight. He wears the Knight or Elite Knight set, kind of very reminiscent of the same set that can be found in Dark Souls 1. If it's not the same, exactly the same, it's definitely, you know, looks it. And that set was worn by a store of nobles, if I'm getting my lore correct on that one. Now this tells you the deaths worldwide. If you play offline, it won't tell you this, of course, so that's a lot of death for this version of the game. And on it we see more runes scratched on the surface. Some of them are Nordic runes, yes, as I recognise some of them. That one especially, kind of second one down on the second row. Well, second one up, shall I say. But most of them, to me, are pretty alien and may just be made up. But some of them are real from my short time, like this rune. This rune at the top left. That kind of Z, that Z if you're American. That symbol, that's a rune, can either mean Sovilo, or it's a rune which means sun, or it means the yew tree, and connects with that Yggdrasil and stuff. Anyway, point being, again, more language that we can't decipher from an age long gone, from a people that are no longer here. And on the rear of the obelisk, the letters are worn beyond recognition. Now the structuring of this faded lettering to me looks very similar to what can be found on the Victor's Stone over there and the tutorial messages. Now this, it has no purpose in Scholar of the First Sin, but in Dark Souls 2, for those of you who remember and were around at the time, before the release of the DLC, or right at the release, this would read a kind of little hint where to go to find the entrance into the DLC. And I just thought that was really, really cool. Like, it was such a small thing, but I just loved that that was actually a thing. It got me excited, and I didn't read anywhere how to gain access to the DLC. All I read about was that this told you something new, so I instantly checked it. You know, and I've forgotten exactly what it was worded for the first DLC, the Shulva, the Sunken City. But yeah, I made it my quest to find the entrance, and I eventually did, which of course, again, spoilers, but it will help any new players. It's near the Rotten, that's all I'll say. The Gulch. So yeah, that no longer serves a purpose, because obviously no DLC's coming out, and this is the full final version of the game, the Scholar of the First Sin. So just kind of a relic of old ideas. In the distance we see Hyde Towers of Flame, should I say. Now Hyde, as you can see, is fallen into ruin, but it's very reminiscent of a certain capital and keep that could be found in Dark Souls 1, that being Anolondo and Gwyn's Keep, residing in the City of the Gods. And the tower, Hyde's Tower of Flame, if you remember, Guinevere is said to have left Anolondo and married a flame god, Flan, and many people believe that this is where she went. She called this place home because of the architecture and other things that can be found within Hyde and the Flaming Tower. I also subscribed to that theory at the time, and part of me still believes that may have been the original tent in very early drafts, because Dark Souls 2 suffers the most from concepts and early ideas not being fully formed and never getting completed, and these concepts and ideas kind of living in the final product and meaning different things, but if you look deep enough and understand the development of the game, they could have implied many other things if the game took a different direction. As I said, the development was not smooth, to say the least, and things were patched together, scrambled together to form a full product. It was a miracle that we managed to get Dark Souls 2, in my opinion. And the two directors, which I've forgotten the name of, who were in charge of Dark Souls 2, one of them left the company, I believe, but one of them is still with From Software. Massive respect for them and the team that worked on Dark Souls 2, because they were definitely dealt the shorthand, because everyone's attention was on Project Beast for the most part, and kind of Dark Souls 3 was in the pipeline. So From Software was very much spread thin between the DLCs and the main and new titles. But Bloodborne definitely took the cake, especially for, as we know, Miyazaki. He loves creating new IPs. He said in the past he doesn't like creating sequels, and it is my opinion, and will always be my opinion, that From Software shine at creating new IPs, not adding to existing IPs. And that's evident with the existence of Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3. Again, we know my opinion on Dark Souls 3, and I'm not going to mention it in this episode. I'm going to try not to anyway. Anyway. Right, Solden, you glum-looking fellow. What's wrong with you?
Undead, aren't you? You have that distinct scent. The smell of irreversible fate.
Again, this another mention of our scent and smell.
It is a kind of settlement. A place where life is almost normal. And in Drang Lake these days, there are very few places like that.
Not very many normal places, and I agree with him. Yeah, it's almost normal. And there's huge comfort in Majula. But yeah, Solden, as I said, I believe he's been here for a very long time. Much like the crestfallen characters in other Souls games, he has attempted to embark on the quest that we now found ourselves on, but he's fallen at a certain hurdle and given up all faith in himself and the quest and the wider world in general. So now he offers partial sound advice to any newcomers, but you can tell he doesn't really have faith in them, because he doesn't have faith in anything. He's a broken man. He is crestfallen. Anyway, far off into the distance we see a huge figure facing away from us, and that is a soldier or heavily armoured man that was constructed in order to keep the giants away, to stop them invading Drang Lake, and that's something we'll discuss when we get over there, but just really cool. I made reference to this when in Things with Twix, and I mentioned that Drang Lake is called, well, it's stated that it's a walled off kingdom far to the north, and I just kind of referenced, where are the walls? You know, this is some form of fortification and a deterrent from invaders, but we don't see any actual high walls, you know, that we can look down upon. Do you know what I mean? Like, it has a natural wall, yes. I mean, the texture's really rear their ugly head from this angle. When using the binoculars, you can see the outline there. But yeah, it's beautiful. It is beautiful for Scholar of the First Sin. Did a great job. Anyway, Solden.
I am Solden. And like you, I lost everything. And now I'm here. You probably heard that it was possible to break the curse here. Well, that's not true at all. There's nothing here for you, me, or anybody. Do you know much about souls? Even I'm not certain, but I'm told that the soul is the essence of life itself. Anything living, sentient or no, supposedly has one. What we call the curse is traceable to the soul.
Do you see what that means? To be alive, to walk this earth. That's the real curse, right there. We undead will never die. And that's quite a predicament, really.
So, he says anything living or sentient or no supposedly possesses a soul, and things possessing souls, whether they be made of stone or flesh, is something that is continued in Dark Souls 2 a lot. Giants being one of them, and the golems that were created from the giants, that kind of technology of how stone could be animated. Again, we're kind of getting into spoilers, and that kind of ties in with the Emerald Herald's dialogue when she references that the king peered into the essence of the soul. But I remember to mention it, I've not mentioned it yet, but in the playable, in the network test which took place in the Huntsman Copse, or Copse, however you want to say it, I say Copse. A certain NPC which we are yet to find, she sits there and she stole Leningrass key. She is actually, or was, found there. She has a little camp and you could speak to her within the network test. And she has dialogue that states, she goes, "When the giants crossed the seas." Now what she was in reference to, of course, is the giants type enemies found in this game. But at the time, because we knew next to nothing about the game, when the network test was taking place, I believe it was in the network test, it may have been in a trailer, a playable gameplay trailer, I can't remember, it was so long ago, but I think it was the network test. Anyway, that got people excited because, as I mentioned, Guinevere left with Flame God Flan, and before people even knew that Hyde was a thing, people speculated that that dialogue said by that NPC, which we are yet to meet, is in reference to Guinevere and the other gods leaving Anor Londo and finding a new place to live. So that got the community all riled up, and got me riled up. I was so excited. I thought there was a new continent taking place, just near Dark Souls 1, timeline-wise. As I've mentioned in my Duke's Archives episode of my Undead Pilgrimage, I wish Dark Souls would have explored the continents named in Dark Souls 1. I wanted to learn more about Katarina, especially Xena. You get so little on Xena. I wanted to know more about that. Astora, we get so many characters from there. I wanted to know more about the world from Dark Souls 1 rather than coming away from that. But I love the direction Dark Souls 2 went. They detached itself from Dark Souls 2 and focused on the human side of things, while of course still tying back to the first game. They really tried to separate it and make it something new, and that did work in areas, but it also didn't work in areas. And because, as I mentioned, it wasn't what people wanted, and due to the development cycle and the downgrades, people hated Dark Souls 2. Because it wasn't Dark Souls 1.5, because it was so different, because it looked so different, because it wasn't the game we eventually got. There were many reasons to hate Dark Souls 2, and this hate, I believe, festered as hate does. It manifested itself, and then upon the release of Dark Souls 3, and even the pre-release, when we get the trailers, the network test, and all that good stuff, and the hype towards Dark Souls 3, people were realising that Dark Souls 3 was what they always wanted, a Dark Souls 1.5 essentially. So that hate kind of reared its ugly head again, and it spread into the community, and anyone who would be new to the Souls community for Dark Souls 3 would then question Dark Souls 2, should I play the previous games? And then it would instantly get dismissed, no, don't play Dark Souls 2, it's rubbish, it's the worst Souls. And that is true, it is the worst Souls. But it's still a fantastic Souls game because it's from software. It is a Souls game. It's just not the best one because, as I said, it had a short hand. This version isn't the version we were supposed to get. If we got Dark Souls 2, it would have been incredible, but we didn't. We got this version, and I'm happy for that. And I love this version of the game. I love the vanilla version of the game. I love Scholar of the First Sin version of the game. I can't wait, or if the day ever comes we get a Dark Souls 2, we get a remake. So never say never. But yeah, my point being is that I believe the hate spread into Dark Souls 3, and it still lingers there today. You see many Reddit posts, you see many people in other communities, you know, should I play Dark Souls 2? I've heard it's rubbish, and I hate that. I hate seeing that. Yeah, I hate it, because it's not true. Everyone should give this game a chance. And if you haven't played this game and watching this, thank you for watching. I hope I've enticed you to play it, even though I haven't been playing it much. I've been talking a lot about it, but that's because I focus on the lore in these games. But hopefully you'll be purchasing this game for Christmas or the new year before Elden Ring. Kind of get this completed, and then you can move on to Elden Ring. But anyway, back to Zoldan. Complete tangent, spawning from a character's dialogue aside. Let's speak to this Crestfallen again.
There are 4 beings in this land with giant souls. And wherever you go from here, you'll sooner or later come up against them. Each has a powerful soul and a terrible curse. If that frightens you, then you ought to just give up right now, like I have.
I'm simply Crestfallen. I love Crestfallen. The first one, Dark Souls 1's the best. Obviously, he's first appeared in Demon Souls, but Dark Souls 1's Crestfallen. I find him hilarious. Like, he's unironically so funny, especially when, if you're cursed and you speak to him, he has a dialogue that essentially goes, "Oh, woe is the undead that's cursed on top of it all." Like, the sarcasm from that man is just hilarious. And this one, not so much. I think this is my least favourite Crestfallen, because, I don't know, he's just not got much personality in this one. And after you speak with him the first time, because he's kind of out of the way in an obelisk that you don't really, you know, once you've kind of been here, you don't go here again. It means that many people don't speak to him. But of course, if you unfortunately ignore him, you do miss out on his goodies, because he does give you some stuff as you kind of populate Majula. His mood does actually, he does chirping up a bit. And he's the only one out of the Crestfallens, actually, that doesn't end up dead. He remains alive, I think, if I've got that right.
Do you ever cry out for help? The journey of an undead is long and treacherous. You'll face invaders from other worlds at every turn. If you need help, why not proclaim faith in the Blue Sentinels? When you face danger, the Blue Sentinels will come to your aid. Protection is yours, if you wish. You need only accept their kind embrace.
So this mention of Blue Sentinels, I believe Morlin also mentioned their name, and he wasn't really fond of them. If I'm getting that correct, because the Blue Sentinels, Volgan, and Hyde's Tower of Flame all connect and relate to each other. But here we have the Way of the Blue, so upon joining this covenant and equipping this ring, if we are invaded, we will get a Blue Phantom, because this is like the junior covenant. The Big Brother covenant resides in Hyde's Tower of Flame, but to join that we need a token of fidelity, to join that as evidence of defeating an invader. So this is like the baby covenant. If you still want to play online but don't want to get invaded, there are many ways to avoid getting invaded, of course. I think, was it burning humanity at the fire reduces invasions, or your chances of invasions. But anyway, this is also another kind of barrier to help new players. I will say, I never really equipped this ring, but when I have, I think a blue has only ever come and helped me. Probably I can fit it on one hand. Like, I've not really been very fortunate with people coming and help me from the blue side, but it is what it is. We get the blue seal.
That is a wise decision. People are weak, but the Blue Sentinels watch over us in their benevolence. let the sentinels cradle you in their embrace. Do you feel lonely here? It suits me just fine. It will grow on you, this place.
So Gillen Jester, welcome.
Do you see the way beyond the bonfire? That will take you to the forest of the giants. There was once a great fort, but little of it remains. You may just find something there that will be of use on your journey. But don't venture too far inside, or you might not come back.
And this fort was built, as I've kind of hinted at, for the giants. The giants invaded as, again, spoilers, I have to give some context. If you've not played the game, Vendrick stole something from them. And he did this because his wife, Nashandra, kind of goaded him into doing it. She kind of pointed across the seas and goes, you know, they've got something you want. And off he went, you know, Vendrick being a big boy that he was, the almighty conqueror, and he did conquer them. He took something from them and came home with it. And as I mentioned, this technology was how stone can be animated through souls. I believed it to be, anyway. I think it is, due to in Drang Lake you see these golems that can be animated via souls, and very giant-esque, you know. And the topic of what Vendrick stole was a big discussion in the early days. I remember it was more interesting than it actually turned out to be in the very early days upon the release of the game. You know, because Emerald Herald has some dialogue which we'll get, where she says Vendrick peered into the essence of the soul, and it just seemed more fascinating to me than it actually what it was, which is the golem technology. But yeah, anyway, my point for this was what I can't remember. Oh yeah, the war with the giants wasn't just a kind of like a 15-minute thing. It was many generations, and we'll get to experience that, or you will get to experience that, should I say, when you partake in giant memories. So, yeah, really, really cool. Again, more evidence of more time and the downfall of Drang Lake and just what the people went through. Constant war for generations. Your family, your grandfather served the war, your dad served the war, and now you're up and being trained to fight the giants. This unrelenting force, fueled on just fierce hate. It's great. And giants and the lore of giants, I don't like what they did with Dark Souls 3. They gave Yorm a face, but they did it in such a sly way in the reveal trailer, the Dark Souls 3 reveal trailer, where Yorm stands out of his coffin and then screams in his very deep voice. Due to his kind of headpiece and his chainmail, it looks like he has no face, which again is very reminiscent to the Dark Souls 2 giants, but he does have a face. And I just don't like what they did with the giant lore in that aspect, because I love giants. As I mentioned in my Indo pilgrimage, I think giants are one of the coolest points of lore and stories within these games for me. I just think giants are just dead fascinating, whether it be in mythology or this game's lore. But anyway, Solden, I've gone on another tangent, mate. Sorry.
Hade's Tower of Flame lies beyond the far gate.
There it is, over there.
The Apostles of Blue gather. But the road leading there is perilous. The gate is rigged with some contraption. But how it works, I just don't know.
And this contraption links in with an NPC that can be found in Hade's Tower of Flame, as they hold the key.
Have you seen that pit, that gaping hole in the earth?
You mean that one over there?
I don't know what it's like down below, but I wouldn't suggest trying to find out. Besides, you'll never make it down there. Not without a ladder of some sort.
Well, we probably won't find the NPC, but talking about giants and Yorm, there's a certain dead reference sprawled out on the floor within the capital, and he is the Master of Ladders.
The flame you
found
see
in Dark Souls 3.
is a bonfire. They exist all across the land, beacons to we undead. If you are tired, try resting beside the flame. The flame heals us. Long ago, a woman called a firekeeper watched over each bonfire. She kept the flame lit and guarded it from those who would extinguish it. I wonder where the firekeepers went.
Yeah, just really, really interesting. You know, the old ones, though, so incredibly ancient, referenced by Shaliqua. Obviously, the firekeepers that we know, as I mentioned, they no longer are at bonfires. They are no longer keeping fire because they're all shacked up in that little hut they've got inside the tree, and Millibeth's family have been serving them for generations. They're a reference of ancient and called the old ones. So how long, as I said, have they been MIA from their fires is just really fun to think about. But here yet we see another fire with no firekeeper, but the Emerald Herald, she basically replaces that role. But she's not your traditional firekeeper, and she's got other motives, and how she was conceived is also really interesting.
Did you notice any letters on the ground on the way here? These are messages that have jumped the fissures between worlds. In Drang Lake, the flow of time is convoluted. Things shift and waver, twist and turn. Poignant wishes, dashed dreams. The messages convey our very inner thoughts. If your will to soldier on falters.
So yeah, here we go. We get the dialogue of timey-wiminess, first given to us by Solaire of Astora in just before the bridge leading into the parish, and now Solden gives us here, and he refers to Drang Lake being the place where time is convoluted. So again, Drang Lake is where Lordran used to sit. There was people made some brilliant maps where they believe kind of Drang Lake and Lordran are situated kind of on top of each other, and I believe Drang Lake is larger than Lordran, but it also does contain Lordran. Drang Lake is massive. Vendrick took over, as I've said, many other former rulers' structures and keeps and such, but the law on when certain rulers existed alongside other rulers and kingdoms is something I need to get more clued up on, because there's a lot of there's Ven and there's Alkan, if I've got those right, and there's law to do with them. There's the Old Iron King, and there's the Prince, and there's Vendrick. Yeah, there's a lot going on, but it's really, really cool to dissect and get your head stuck in. Anyway, Solden.
May you find peace on your journey.
Thank you. I'm kind of sick of talking to you now, mate, so I'm going to leave. You're getting me down, son. Right, well, finally, we'll wrap up this conversation, by the way. I'm not ending the episode, so don't worry. Finish by talking to the Emerald Herald. Now, the Emerald Herald, we see a feather. That feather is important in the later game. She also has red tied around her. Now, as mentioned in the Bone of Order, we see this red thread tied around this bone. You will be punished for fleeing from other worlds by disconnecting unjustly. However, this charm will disperse the eye directed at you. But sins are not easily buried, and there's no telling if you will be let off so easily next time. Each encounter in life is a precious turn of fate, and fate will not be cheated. And fate also ties in with the Emerald Herald, as you kind of have some dialogue around that subject. I just think that's interesting, you know, an item with red thread. She also... Oh, I can't get it right. Oh, no! Dark Souls! Anyway, GG game. As I was saying, she also has red fabric, whatever you want to call it, wrapped around her. And I just think that's an interesting thing to make connections with. The theme of fate. What fate means inside of this game, and us as the bearer of the curse, you know. Are we another monarch, or simply, you know, another stone in the road, whatever she says? We'll find out now. She also actually has 2 different coloured eyes, if I remember that correctly. You can see this by manipulating your camera and peering into a skull. I probably won't be able to do it. I think she has a brown and green eye. Oh, brown and purple eye, there you go. And we kind of see the Melina in Elden Ring, again, not to spoil any too much, just to give some context. Melina, an NPC can be found in Elden Ring. She also... Does she have different coloured eyes? Have I got that wrong? No, because she has one eye closed, doesn't she? I don't think she opens her other eye. Where am I getting this NPC with 2 colour eyes from? There's another character in Dark Souls, or the Souls series, or Soulsborne series, that has 2 different coloured eyes, and I've forgotten. Or I might be just making that up. Ignore that point. Moving on.
Are you the next monarch? Or merely a pawn of fate? Bearer of the curse, I will remain by your side till this frail hope shatters. Take this with you. May it ease your journey.
Are we a pawn of fate? That's what I was kind of referencing there, when between the bone of order, whatever it's named,
Go
and
on and see the
the Emerald
king.
Herald.
He who made Drangleic what it once was. He who peered at the essence of the soul.
What it once was and no longer is.
King Vendrick.
King Vendrick. So that is who we must seek. You may level up by the power of the Emerald Herald.
Bearer of the curse, seek misery.
Okay.
For misery will lead you to greater, stronger souls. You will never meet the king with a soul so frail and pallid.
Yeah, she's not very nice, but she does tell truth. We have no experience. And this ties in with soul memory, as you need to have a certain amount of souls in order to progress to Drangleic, to Drangleic Castle. Because you need you need 1 million souls, and you can acquire this by many different ways. You just need a million souls, as I said, so you can do that however which way you want. You can play the normal game, or you can kind of bonfire aesthetic, kind of farm the same boss. I've forgotten the main way in order. I think you can actually do the Shrine of Winter skip, can't you? Or maybe that's in the vanilla game, because you used to be able to parry. Yeah, there was a complete tangent we're going on now, but there was a glitch that can still be performed, I believe, in the original game, and maybe even in Scholar. If you parry an enemy and then roll on them, you'll essentially walk on thin air, and you can use this to manipulate and get into areas that, of course, you wouldn't be able to. And that was used in the Shrine of Winter skip in speedrunning, to kind of ignore the whole soul memory thing. But anyway, when she says we need more powerful souls, she literally means we do need a more powerful soul. Yes, like we need to become stronger, but we just need more souls in general, or else we won't be able to access the Shrine of Winter.
Seek those whose names are unutterable. The 4 endowed with immense souls. Their souls will serve as beacons. Once you have found them, return here to me, so that hope will not fade away. Is that a shard you found?
Yes, it is. Seek, bearer, seek,
Let
lest.
me see it, so that I may help you to see light, however faint.
Yeah. Emerald Herald. Sorry for skipping a dialogue, but I've just heard it so many times. The meme, the well-known meme by now, bearer, seek, lest, is hilarious. When that first was a thing, I just couldn't stop laughing at it. It's one of the best memes to come from Dark Souls, I believe. Anyway, we'll upgrade our shaft. We won't be doing that. Our flask with the shard is what I meant to say. We may level. Have I got enough to level up? No, I need 948. Never mind.
Over the hill and past the forest is the king's castle.
No, she's mentioning that over there.
Where a man peered straight into the essence of the soul.
But what came of it?
But whatever came of it.
I don't know.
Those who come to Dranglake seeking salvation soon lose hope and turn hollow. It happens to them all, sooner or later. That blue knight at the base of the tower, his spirit is already broken. Although he does offer sound advice.
He does indeed.
Perhaps he is a foreshadowing of your own future.
Have faith in me.
That tiny thing inside the ruins.
She's talking about the cat.
An ancient being that will mock your very existence. She imparts sound wisdom. Provided you find her on a good day. The sign you bear will drain your very souls. And without souls, you will turn hollow. Stay strong. Do not lose hope. Even when you have precious little time.
Again, all this dialogue just indicates that this isn't the first time Emerald Herald has kind of had to humour a bearer of the curse, you know, a potential king or just a fool. She also has other details. She has this dagger kind of dangling rather freely. Not very safe there, my love. I'm going to try not kill myself again. But yeah, it's really, really interesting. And for those of you who know the Emerald Herald and her origins and her name, I shan't say too much. Her colours, kind of the green, her accent, her red hair. Does she have the Irish kind of twang? Or am I just making that up? And she has a bandaged arm as well. Again, that ties into her history and her creation. But yeah, I've heard many people talk about her appearance and her garb, but I've never really heard anyone connect the red fabric with the other red fabric that can be found on other items and this theme and mention of fate, because it's mentioned in here and she also mentions fate, you know. Right, we are ready to leave this place. I'm so sorry that took ages, but you know what I'm like. The Far Fire. Again, each bonfire has its own name, which is something that Dark Souls 1 didn't. You could only obviously warp to select bonfires. And we now enter this... Well, it's just this route, isn't it? Rather unusual structure. You'll see the typical, you know, illusory wall ahead, usually. This one. Yeah, vision illusory wall. Even though that one's not the usual message. Safe zone ahead. Now, this... You see there's many... Will this guy get gobbled? No. You'll see there's many bloodstains. Oh, we actually opened it without interacting with it. Interacting the bloodstain. We have another rusted coin. And this is because... This is because that chest is a mimic in New Game Plus. I believe that it was a mimic in the original game, and the change to make it a mimic in New Game Plus was a Scholar of the First Sin edition, although I could be wrong on that. We see our path, our progression is blocked by a barred door there, but here we can also gain access via this mechanism. You'll come familiar with mechanisms such as these, kind of lifting up doors in a similar fashion. And they do take, some of them take absolutely ages. And you can't pass under them until it's cleared. Oh God, you can't pass under them until it's cleared for some considerable way. I'll tell you what we haven't done. go back and join the Champions Covenant, as I knew I would forget to do that after joining the Way of the Blue, the baby boy Covenant. Oh, the stamina. Let me run some more. You can't run until your stamina's fully regened. I mean, if you let your stamina fully deplete, you then have to wait till it's back up to 100% before you can run again. But if you stop running just before it runs out, you can then continue to run. So just keep that in mind for stamina management. Ah, I've joined again. Okay, off we go. And you know, the kind of shape of, I guess, Medulla, well, where the obelisk is, how it kind of juts out, is kind of very reminiscent of how Firelink, why do I keep saying Firekeep? Of how Firelink Shrine is shaped and how it's supported off the cliffside in Dark Souls 3. You know, it kind of takes a similar shape, I guess. But other than that, there's nothing connecting Medulla with Firelink Shrine from Dark Souls 3. Put me specs away, get me sword back out. Right, and let's try this mechanism again, and let's not be fooled by it, because you can use mechanisms like this to defeat enemies. I'm not sure if this one will kill you here. I'm gonna wager yes, it probably will do. So just be careful, I guess, it doesn't collapse on your head. Because there's areas in the game, as I said, that you can kind of lure enemies and then wait for it to drop on their head, and it will kill them in one shot. It's great. Now here in this chasm, we find a wooden rickety bridge with two slim logs, so we can reach that chest, and we found a humanity within it. We'll do the jump in order to access this area for this item. Homeward bone and a lost soul of undead. We see the stream flowing down river, and we see yet more of these Cyclops hippo things, these very annoying enemies. And here we find, oh god, I got stuck on a rock. Find a soldier of Drang Lake, an infantryman. You notice how they are very fireman-esque, wielding axes? Well, that is because we are within the Forest of the Fallen Giants. And when giants are felled, they turn into trees. And we discussed trees in the things betwixt. And what are trees? Well, they were originally stone. When burnt and destroyed from the ash, the new trees formed, the new arch trees, but they were made of wood. Giants are entities of stone that then become trees. So again, this theme of stone, wood, stone being a vessel for life. I mentioned this in my Titanite lore video. To give you a bit more context on that kind of topic, please go watch that, as it definitely ties in with Dark Souls 3, as stone being a vessel for life is greatly continued in this game for those who haven't played. I'll go human, why not? Can I not use it? There we go. Just in case I do get invaded, because it'll be fun too. So yeah, these fireman type infantrymen wielded axes, of course, to defeat the giants. The fort was overrun by giants. Although they were defeated, they still conquer it in death, as they are everywhere. Their roots and branches buried into the structure, crumbling it and making ways of access difficult. due to they basically just reshaped the whole location. And I love that theme. The kind of repurposing of navigation and travel is something through trees and roots, should I say, is something we saw in Izalith. Lost Izalith. Oh, we got the sword. Excellent. Lost Izalith upon the bed of chaos, but upon the witch being engulfed, and then the slow engulfment of the witch as the bed of chaos and the parasite took more from her, and the roots resemble that kind of engulfment and kind of growth of the chaos flame. The roots, as we've seen, burrowed their way through all the structures. They broke through the kiln, which is basically the lid on top of Izalith, which we use as a way to gain access into Izalith, and other instances of kind of the walkways into the main part of Izalith, where we fight the boss, the Bed of Chaos, kind of being replaced by roots. We have to use roots in order to actually get up over the wall. So again, this theme of trees and roots and life, a different form of life, kind of conquering the terrain and becoming a new method of access, is continued in this area, and I think that's a really cool theme to consider and remember if you've never noticed that before, or you may not have never noticed Izalith kind of working in that way. If you haven't already, please watch my Izalith episode 24, I believe, of Lost Izalith, which is my Undead Pilgrimage lore through. In that video I go in depth of how kind of wood and roots have replaced the structures and navigation of Izalith, showing this change of culture, this change of power. You know, it's a visual representation of how Izalith changed upon the witch's engulfing. Not only the birth of pyromancy, fire arts and fire sorceries were lost upon the birth of pyromancy. You know, out with the old and in with the new, but like culturally and visually, Izalith changed, should I say, not chained. Anyway, more on that subject if you watched episode 24 of my lore through an Undead Pilgrimage Dark Souls 1. It'll make more sense what I'm saying. If you haven't watched that, of course you'll be like, what is the man talking about? Now, for those of you who played the original, this area, this instance, will be engraved in your mind, because here was the resting place of a Hyde Knight. Now, Hyde Knights, of course, they come from Hyde, and we've seen the state of Hyde from a distance. It's fallen to ruin into the ocean, and in the original game you found them scattered all throughout, and presumably they were travelling due to the destruction of their kingdom. In Scholar of the First Sin, that decision was reversed, and they can all be found within Hyde now. I believe, actually, there may be some exceptions where they're not found in Hyde, although, no, I don't think there is. I think they're all found in Hyde from my memory. If I'm wrong, forgive me. But they are all now living in Hyde, which makes it, again, a bit more of a gank fest. But they kind of resemble and replicate what From Software wanted to do with Black Knights in Dark Souls 1. They wanted Dark Souls 1 to travel the area and the world, but they didn't have the resources and technology to do that, so you find them at fixed points throughout the game, and of course they then altered the lore and, you know, the story to match that decision, and their locations found within Dark Souls. You know, they're not gonna, From Software, do it. If they can't make something work, they will then make it fit in a way that makes sense. They won't just leave it in there and be like, well, hey, we didn't get it to work the other way, so screw it, we'll just shove them in this way. No, they don't do that. I mean, it's From Software we're talking about. They are masters of their craft. But anyway, Hyde Knights were basically the Black Knights of Dark Souls 1, because you'd find them in different locations, kind of just chilling, and they were like a mini boss, really. Especially this one that used to stump where this corpse is now. I think he held the a High Knight sword, and the High Knight weapons from an early, not even really an early game, like they could see through the whole game. In the original game, they were good. They're really good, and they still are really good in Scholar of First Sin, I believe. So yeah, if you were lucky enough and had the balls and skilled enough to defeat the High Knight in this area, you got a weapon that would see you through for a while. But of course, it required attributes that you've not yet achieved, so you would have to level it up a bit. You know, very Black Knight-esque. If you were lucky enough to get the Black Knight sword in the Berg or the Black Knight Ultra Great Sword, you'd of course have to pump some strength into your character before you're able to wield it. And the Ultra Great Sword and the Black Knight weapon, the Black Knight's Ultra Great Sword is just unreal. I do like the standard Black Knight sword, but the Ultra Great Sword I just think is incredible. I think it's so cool. And unfortunately, the Black Knight weapons, they suck in this game. I think they do anyway. I've used them a few times, but there's no incentive for me in this game to kind of get a Black Knight weapon. You know, having one drop in the first game it's just so cool and dead rewarding, and obviously it's based on luck, random RNG, because I think it's a 1% drop rate. Obviously they don't respawn. The only time you get to see Black Knights again is in the kiln, so if you're lucky enough it'll see through the whole game, and they're overpowered as hell because of that. Anyway, Ultra Great Swords in this game, or just great swords in general, I don't like how they attack. They have like this twirly attack type. Like, it's not your standard kind of heavy slashes. They've got kind of like this, as I said, yeah, flick of the wrist, this kind of twirl, and I don't like what they did with it. And I think the Black Knight weapons, if I remember, they're a bit skinnier in this version, in Dark Souls 2. Where in Dark Souls 1 they were obviously a bit bulkier. And in Dark Souls 2 they require faith to wield. So if you're not rolling a faith build, I'm afraid you're screwed. But anyway, the roots. You see how the roots sprout out of the fort and just completely encase it. They bury and dig through the foundations, destroying the wall, completely changing how one is to access this place. Again, the moss and just nature's also taken over. I just think visually it's really cool, and you've got these like ember particles, again making it very dreamlike. And back there is where our bonfire is, with the typical 2D birds, which if you played Souls, birds acting in this way will be familiar to you, because they can be seen in the painted world in Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 3, I think, in the same painted world, and obviously here, and other instances, and even in Demon Souls Remake. Again, if you watch Illusory Wall's latest compare through of the Demon Souls and Demon Souls Remake, he shows off how he shows the birds off and how they do and don't work, how they kind of render in, because they are just 2D textures, of course. Oh, I nearly ruined it for myself then. We get the short sword. Again, the short sword, pretty good weapon. Deserves a bit more love. Very weak, but again, you don't need a lot of attributes points to use it. So it's any weapon in Dark Souls is good. Like, you can make any weapon work. You just got to be skilled enough and have the preservation. I can't say it. You got to have the determination to carry on using it, even if it does suck. Peer over this wall, and we see a later area which we will drop down into. I'm trying to think where the last giant boss fight is. So it's through there. You take the stairs down, and then you fall back on yourself, but not too much. And they take an elevator down. Yeah, I was trying to see if the routes here line up with the boss fight of the last giant, but they don't. I don't think they do anyway. Without having having to run through it, which we'll do shortly. Well, we might not do it this episode, but because I've never looked at the map editor for Dark Souls 2, so I'm not sure how it kind of pieces together. Anyway, look at this. You can see the capital, the castle. Drangleic Castle there, peering its head over the fort. The Obsidian Tower, Barad-dûr. And here we have another example of, as I said, how the wood and roots and giants have kind of reshaped the fort. You know, they haven't blocked this way, but you wouldn't think that there was once stone behind this roots. It's kind of created this hollow walkway, isn't it? It's just really cool how it's encased not only the outside of the structures, but also the inside. Completely taken over. Oh my god. The jump attacks in this game by enemies are just ridiculous. How did he get me round a corner? Got the throwing knives, which is a good drop actually, because we'll need to use them. We see rusted armor. We also see, actually, didn't point this out, rusted armor, weaponry, you know, remains of the fallen soldiers. You can see their blood splattered from the fallen knights. If I call them Lordran Knights by accident, forgive me. I feel like I'm going to do that, or I may have already done that. But the Drangleic Knights have fallen, and you can see their remains mixed up in the rubble here, of course. So just really cool little details. I wanted to see if that the shield bash would move the box, but it didn't. Now these guys, you know, they are the knights. They hit a bit more. They two-hand long swords, and they're a bit more of a nuisance, but their armor's pretty cool. Hello, fellow. And our weapon's going to break soon because durability in this game is horrendous, but that's because you play the game differently, the levels act differently, so the durability has to reflect that. Because if it was Dark Souls 1 durability, you could literally play the whole game without the weapon ever breaking, I think. So your weapons are basically made of butter in Dark Souls 2, so definitely always have repair powder on your person when venturing round. And for this bit, always use a throwing knife. Sometimes it will dislodge him, or just aggro him enough to get him moving. There we go. Right, you little. The old classic hollow. Oh no, we don't want to do that. The classic hollow the mad attack gets many new players. We've got the foot soldier shield. We'll read all these when we find a safe haven, but this is really what I'm gunning for, which is the buckler. We'll practice those parries. And the buckler reads, the small shields are very light and easy to use, but have low stability when attacked. The centre of a buckler is convex, designed to brush attacks aside, making parrying easier. Oh, we can't actually use it. What stats does it require? 13 dex. What do I have? 8. Wow. Looks like I need to pump some dex in. I mean, you don't... That's the thing, you don't really... I mean, we're not going to be blocking with it. I'll just have it on my offhand. like I don't think not having the stats actually affects the parry. Obviously, if we're blocking with it, you can see how slow it is because I don't know if it affects actually the block speed. Oh, hello, guy. But yeah, in Dark Souls 1, when you couldn't use an item due to you not having the right attributes, you had unique animations, and I don't think Dark Souls 2 had that. And Dark Souls 3 definitely didn't. They removed that. But I don't think Dark Souls 2 had it either. But it was just really cool. Get the Witch Urn. And again, we see more of this kind of embers, this dreamlike embers. Hear the crows above us. Get a better glimpse of the castle. And if I pan my camera, you can hear that kind of like tinkle, that enchanting sound, and that relates to a corpse of a fallen giant, which is here. There he is there. You can see how his body is becoming a tree. So I mentioned, could the tree in the intro cinematic be of a giant? And you know, it could be. It could be. Or it could not be, due to the amount of corpses that are lying around, not only in the lake, but also around the tree. And the reason why the tree hasn't got leaves on it is also interesting. Presumably because of all the death has made the land, you know, unfertile, so life can't actually, the tree can't actually grow any leaves, so it's essentially a dead tree, kind of representing the death that surrounds it. I don't know. Oh, I don't know, this place, Forest of Fallen Giants, is just dead chill. It gives me a proper cozy feeling, because I've done it so many times. Human effigy, excellent. And here I go, as I mentioned earlier, how the routes replace old paths and create new paths of navigation. You know, we use this to go down. Just really cool. You know, yes, it's destroyed the supporting structure, but it's also kind of replaced it. Vigor, yes, you definitely need vigor. How have you got there? What are you doing? There we go. God, these soldiers. And again, we're able to climb down because of this branch. I will jump over to this area. Again, a semi kind of secret. You get gifted some prism stones, not too much, but try jog. Just a really cool little area that, if you've got the balls to do it, you get prism stones. That platform here, again, this area that platform leads to is only accessed via an item, but I don't know if this is available in the or can be done in the Scholar First Sin, but definitely in the original, you can jump and roll, and depending on how good you are at it, and there's other factors into this strategy, but basically you land on this platform and you can basically sequence break the game. God, I'm like a scratched disc, just repeat words because I can't say them. Surprise, motherfucker! Ouroboros' favourite tactic in PvP is to do the backstep and then parry, and it's very effective. Not against NPCs, like, but PvP especially. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. You can't do a backstab out of a running animation. You'll do a running slash. Get parried. Your fist got parried. Which is dead, actually, yeah. You can parry with two-handed weapon. I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot you could do that. That's amazing. I don't even need a buckler then. Also, my weapon is ruined, so we're going to use the short sword. Oh no, I got the foot sword. Yeah. Inexpensive straight sword, standard issue for Drangleic foot soldiers. No masterpiece, this weapon won't be used to fend off any threatening foe. I think this weapon's actually pretty good, you know. I think it's like one of the, like an underdog, like a black sheep, because the requirements are pretty low, and the attributes only D and E. But if you upgrade it via certain paths, I think it can actually be pretty good. It's cool though. Like, I love the hilt. The hilt on it's sick. Now either it's been bent due to war, or it was fashioned in that way on purpose, but it doesn't matter. It looks cool as hell. And can I actually use it? Have I got enough stats for this? I haven't. Yeah, I can actually use this weapon, so that's fine. But yeah, I forgot you could parry with 2 hands. That's mint. Hello. Now these are the ironclad knights, and these are animated suits of armor, much like kind of, well, the Black Knights and Silver Knights. Well, Black Knights were once. We're not one. Well, we're not. Oh God, I can't speak. They weren't intended to be animated suits of armor, but upon Gwyn linking the flame, it's implied that whoever once resided in there was also kind of burnt along with him, and now it's just souls inhabiting a suit of armor. Anyway, these beings never once had someone in them. They were just created to be animated, if you kind of get me. And this animation is not unique to Vendrick, as I've made reference to the giants and the technology he stole. If that was the technology he stole, the golden technology, I'll have to brush up on that part of the lore. But the ironclad knights, the turtle knights as they're named, are creations of a former ruler, that being the old Iron King. And Vendrick, as I said, he's kind of conquered the old and repurposed the old, and kind of took over the creations of the former rulers of this land and repurposed them, and this is an example of that. So yeah, this sword does minimal damage compared to the broadsword, but you know, it's alright. They are pretty, obviously they are heavily armoured, so slashing type weapons rather than blunt will take a lot longer. Again, you get a nice little view here, kind of deep between the structures. You see the roots there, as I said, making the way, crawling over every surface, breaking through every other surface. You can see the repairs, the scaffolding that people attempted to make in order to, as I said, make repairs or just offer a new path of navigation. As the war with the giants not only was a toll on the people, but also the fort. So you can imagine the constant repairs that needs to be made. We also see a crest of Drangleic. Now, I didn't point it out when we were at the entrance, but I will when we go back up there. But we'll see that again on another surface, another wall just up there. But yeah, that is Vendrick's crest of the kingdom. We also see stone people, stone statues. Now, if you're familiar with Dark Souls, well, not even Dark Souls, people are petrified due to basilisks. So the fact that these are here implies that basilisks were once here, but we don't find basilisks here, so that's rather weird. I can't remember if the salamanders can also turn one to stone. I mean, it would make sense seeing as this is their lair, so this may be a result of the salamanders. But obviously in Dark Souls 1 they curse you and you turn into crystals. In this game you turn into stone. And for NPCs who've been turned to stone, you need a fragrant branch of yore, as we've discussed. Now we're going to get a pretty decent weapon early game. There were many YouTube videos made. Jesus, he got me. in the early days of Dark Souls 2, you know, how to find overpowered weapon in 5 minutes, and it was this, the Fire Longsword. It's pretty good. In the very early days it was compared, I can't actually use it, but can I two-hand it? No, I can't two-hand it. In the very early days it was compared to the Drake sword, like a noob trap weapon, because as I said, it was good in this first early area, but you know, kind of quickly becomes redundant. So yeah, I remember hearing those comparisons, that this was basically the Drake sword of Dark Souls 2. Again, more useless information for you, and really doesn't add anything. It may mean something to someone who was around back then, but I don't know, maybe not. Again, we see structures that we can't yet reach. As I mentioned, if you're skilled enough to make that jump and land on that platform down below, sorry, that is a twinkling titanite, I believe. That, and if you're playing online, player messages will indicate that yes, you can go over there. But this is much later in the game and something that we will not be able to do during this playthrough. Look at him sliding down the stairs. Oh, that's funny. And we were being shot by a archer here, and that is an area we'll be able to go into in a short while. Now the crest, the other crest that I mentioned, is here. Much more high res and more detailed crest. See the two dragons facing each other. The symbol of Drang Lake. And this room, I believe, has some concept art in the design works. And in the mentioned video, Crobat, where he compares the E3 gameplay of the version of Dark Souls 2 we never got, this area is featured for, you know, a pretty substantial amount in the early part of that gameplay demo. And he compares kind of this run up and this bonfire to the original version. And due to the lighting mechanic, this place is pitch black. And a good point mentioned in the comments of Crobat's video is how light offers comfort, because when you light the bonfire, because it's so dark in the room in the version of the game we never got to play, but only we got shown, when the person playing lights the bonfire, the statue of this woman is revealed, this embracing woman. And you know, someone made a comment in that video, you know, light provides comfort. We get to see this embracing statue, and instantly we are kind of, you know, settled down, view this sight. But also we see the statue is covered in blood. So someone presumably chose this place to die, may have been praying to it while they were struck down and their blood splattered upon it. And who this woman is to be debated. Could she be the same woman that's kind of depicted? Where's the bloody coin? On the rusted coin, although this figure has wings presumably from that detail, so probably not. But again, someone of importance. What she resembles, as Faith and clerics were a part of Drang Lake, but Vendrick held them at an arm's length. He wasn't too much into his faith. He wasn't really a man of faith, was Vendrick. And I've forgotten the items that give us that lore. But yeah, you know, this wasn't... This version's of the Way of White, which is Lindelt in this game. Lindelt is like basically the Way of White Dark Souls 2. I didn't mean to do that. They don't really have a high... I can't get my words out today. They don't have a high involvement in Drang Lake. But neither does Magic, really. Vendrick was just a man of action, really. A man of the sword, to be honest. We've got a bearded bandit. Hello, sir. Thank you for featuring in the video. We can travel now back to, obviously, the bonfire if we wish. Sorry, the bonfire of Majula. But here, we see an interesting NPC. I believe now we've sat at the bonfire. Yes, my sword is fixed, thank God. This is Valentia. Now you can see that she is basically a hermit crab and carries her home with her, made of rickety wood. But, you know, a pretty sound piece. If she made it by herself, you've got to respect that. And she gives us some dialogue as to why she carries her home on her back. But what I care about more is her hands. Look at these ghastly nails. Now, nails, to be this long implies that she's pretty old, and she is an old woman, and she is undead, so that factors into her hands not looking, you know, the most healthiest. But notice this dark black aura that's emitting out of them. Now this, I believe we see this later in the Shrine of Almana. There are beings that are lulled to sleep by the Melfinito song and kind of the fireflies. And I think they also have the same effect on their hands. So this implies, you know, dark in the abyss. So maybe she's just been undead that long that this black fog, I don't know how to explain it, kind of represents her dark soul. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I'm not making sense, but really important detail, and I don't see many people mention this black aura emanating from her hands. But we do see this elsewhere in the game, I believe. And I think it is from those enemies in the Shrine of Almana. I could be wrong, though. If not, they do have identical hands, I think. Kind of clawish monstrosity hands. Anyway, she's very much still human. Her face, as you can see, she looks like a man, honestly. She's got quite a masculine face. She looks like a Dregling, honestly, from Demon Souls. But anyway, sorry, Valentia, don't listen to my nasty words. You got beautiful nails.
Buy something, anything. Oh, come now, help an old woman and buy something.
And yeah, typical Souls fashion, she laughs at you, which is something to do with Japanese culture. That was explained in Bonfireside Chat. That's where I first heard it, in Bonfireside Chat, where I think in one of the appendix episodes, someone writes in as to why NPCs laugh at you, because depending on the laugh, kind of depends on their character, something along those lines. Anyway, I'm not doing that explanation justice, so yeah. I don't claim to be an expert on these things. I'm just a man who speaks gibberish and can't speak English and has severe dyslexia. It's brilliant. It's great. It makes my arguments make so much more sense. She sells broken straight swords. She basically sells anything and anything she's able to get her hands on. The hand axe, which is pretty good. The club, again, look at that A in strength. Like blunt damage weapons are always superior in Souls games. She sells the travelling merchant hat worn by merchants from Lanifer, where blue represents knowledge. Wearing this increases item discovery. Lanifer is the farthest land to the south and follows a strict edict of isolationism. The rare visitors from Lanifer is always a little odd. So this set is seen on, I think his name is Marigold, which is voiced by the same voice actor who voiced Oswald, what am I saying? Dom Hall of Xena, who was the travelling merchants of sorts that you would, well, not really. You found him in the depths, then he'd moved on to the aqueducts, and that was about it. But you know, he was the Aishamai. He'd sell you boss gear, and this guy is very much the same in that this Marigold, if I'm getting his name right, he can be found in Iron Keep, and he wears the travelling merchant set, I believe. So that implies he's from Lanifer, and again, he's a bit of an oddball, but he has interesting connections to important things, mainly dragons, but we won't discuss that because we won't get there in this mini-series. But yeah, interesting that they have a strict edict of isolationism. Jesus. So that might be why we only find one NPC from in Dark Souls 1, why we only find one NPC from Xena from there, because maybe Xena kind of had that same edict, you know? Yeah, perhaps. I'm not too sure. But blue represents knowledge, and we see blue in hide. The tiles on the roofs of the structures are blue, so obviously the wave of the blue kind of work out of Hyde and have connections to Hyde, so they can imply many things, but something to consider maybe is if that also relates to Hyde. Anyway, raises item discovery, so you want to wear this if you want to get lucky drops. Basically it says the same things depending, yeah, it says the same stuff. Usually sometimes with armor you'll get like the headpiece description, the gauntlets may say something different, and of course the legs may say something different. Usually the chest piece are quite generic. Anyway, she sells human effigy, life gems, amber herb, an annual herb with an ember colour so deep it gives the impression of luminescence, restores a small number of spell uses. It is the mistaken belief of many that the flowers of this herb do not blossom. However, small white flowers do blossom during dusk when the moon is visible. And that's really, really interesting. Again, the moon, an important theme. Mentioned this in the intro. Flowers blossoming during moonlight is something, well, not flower but grass. Certain grass, when plucked during full moon, is very potent in demon souls. She sells the firebomb. We will buy a couple of these. There we go. She sells the witching urn, which we picked up round the corner. A small clay urn unwreathed in magic, explodes, inflicting magic damage. Created in Melfia, a land that flourishes with magic and pyromancy. Though the magic contained in the urn lacks potency, it is a boon to any experienced traveller. And again, someone with a rather loud exhaust just drove past there. Forgive me. So again, Melfia. Oh, he's still here. He's still here. Go on, off you go. Sod off. Take your loud engine elsewhere. I'm trying to record here, man. Created in Melfia, a land that flourishes with magic and pyromancy. So pyromancy from Laurentius' dialogue in Dark Souls 1. He says that it's kind of looked down upon as seen rather... Oh, I've forgotten the term he uses. Basically rather primitive, yeah, and that it doesn't mix well with advanced cultures. And you know, you can kind of take that well. You can kind of imagine in the town of Venheim, people obviously look down at pyromancers, but here in Melfia, well, you can find both users of magic and pyromancy. So culture's changed, and now we have a land that embraces both, which is pretty cool. I referenced Melfia being the land, or scholars from Melfia being the people who just deny Guinevere's existence, and we'll get that description from the blessing. I've forgotten the title of it. Mama's Milk is what I call it. Heirlooms of Guinevere. Anyway, throwing knife, won't really buy much. Then we have a bright bug. Again, we saw these in the intro. A tiny bug that produces light. Bright bugs are said to comfort the dead and are found in marshlands leading to the undead crypt. And again, this links in what I was saying with those creatures that have similar hands and kind of like a dark aura that are lulled to sleep by these bright bugs in the Melfinito song found in the Shrine of Amarna. So, you know, the fact that she sells these, could that relate to her actually being, you know what I mean? Probably not, but interesting. By ingesting a bright bug just before death, the moment at which they glow most brightly, one attains great power for a short time. Often utilised as a last resort for adventurers who have lost their way, has no effect in other worlds or for phantoms. So really cool, again quite rare, only 3, and they cost 6,000 each. Another fairly rare item is the Pharos' Lockstone, stone activating a creation of Pharos the Vagabond. Pharos the Vagabond was a legend who wandered the lands, creating contraptions to help those in sincere and dire needs. The scope of his travels was so wide that Pharos has been mistakenly credited with many inventions that were crafted by others. So there were many copycats of Pharos, and that is something we may be able to delve into during this mini-series. But he did create things. His identity is speculated and linked with the Rossin. That's a common theory where Pharos ended up due to the fixing of a certain statue, which we saw just outside of the pit I made reference to earlier in this episode. So yeah, Pharos is a cool character, and I just love the lore surrounded by him. And here we find a fragrant branch of yore. A fragrant tree branch with a faint, sweet smell restores the life of things turned to stone. Extended inhalation of the branch's scent can lead to coughing and nausea. And this kind of coughing and nausea and sickness links in with an NPC that can be unpetrified on the way to Shaded Woods. She too is a pyromancer, and her master is a magic user. So presumably, no, they're both. I forgot if they're from Melfier. I think that guy I'm referencing is actually from a different kingdom. But anyway, we see magic users and pyromancers kind of working together, even though he purposely loses her and doesn't care about her. But anyway, we're not going to get into that. But yeah, just again, this theme of smell, and this sweet scent. We've seen another mention of sweet. Unpetrifies someone. Trees, the archstone trees were made of stone till they were burnt by the witch and Isleth and her daughters of chaos. And here we see the smell of wood turn someone. The smell of wood reversed the effect of stone. So again, interesting themes and stuff to think about related to that topic of stone and wood. We get Landingrast Key, we'll read it before we purchase it. Majula, Land of Exile, is comprised of abandoned old houses, one of which Landingrast has fastened into a workshop. So, presumably he was doing his stuff, putting his tools in the shed and whatnot, and then Melentia, she creeped up behind him and picked his pockets or picked it up off the table and ran off. And now she's a very much an opportunist, much like the undead merchant in the Undead Burg, who sells the resident key that you need to use to free Griggs, as I believe that's the only door that the or is it the only key, the only door that the master key doesn't unlock? I forget. Doesn't matter. Anyway, she's an opportunist like the undead merchant seen in previous games. Well, in the previous game.
My name is Melentia. You're a stranger to this land. Oh, we get as strangers these days. Everybody's gone and run off. Drang Lake's been a pile of rubble since the war fought long, long ago. And the giants crossed the sea.
And again, that dialogue is exactly the one I was referencing earlier that got the community absolutely spinning when Melentia was found in the Huntsman Copse for the network test. She said that line and everyone went mad, or it was included in the trailer, I can't remember. But yeah, she references that, the war with the giants was long, long ago, and as I mentioned, many generations fought with the war with the giants, so it wasn't a short war to say the least, and she has lived through that due to the undead curse, of course, but also due to her nature and very being. She's a opportunist, as I said, and she doesn't give up hope, and she's a trader, and she often, although she won't get many souls, the little souls she gets keeps her going, and we are her main income from now on, as she's the only merchant that sells an unlimited amount of life gems. So when you play this game, you'll soon be buying 99 life gems, and yeah, you won't really be using much Estus flasks outside of boss fights, because life gems are overpowered, and yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. So I do recommend not using life gems as a bit of a challenge for yourself, as you'll get more of that Dark Souls experience. As I said, they are too good of a crutch, really. But for a new player, I shall forgive you. You can use them.
Seemed like the battles would never end. Poor folk like myself have nary a place to sleep. That's why I keep all me things right with me. You may travel light, but methinks you bear a burden of your own.
I do, you wise old frog.
They say these trees grew from the remains of the giants. From each carcass sprouted new life growing into what you see now. But you know what they also say? Don't believe what an old hag says.
I love it. I love that bit of dialogue.
It's high time that I pick up a move. I've a bargain for you.
So yeah, that's the dialogue you need, and she will repeat that dialogue. Now, she will only move until the boss of this area is defeated. There are 2 bosses technically of this area if you don't defeat him outside of his boss arena. The Pursuer and the Last Giant. So once you defeat the Last Giant, she will move.
Thank you kindly.
And guys, that is honestly where I'm going to leave it, to be honest. I know you may have got the intention that I was going to keep going, but so was I. But my stomach's rumbling. I've been recording for some hours, and I need a bit of a break. I wish I could keep going, but I've got a life to do and things to do and plates to wash up, because living on your own, it's great. If you don't do it, no one will. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you're having a good Christmas, or soon to be, because this will release on the 24th. I hope you're having good times with your family, and you have well-deserved rest. As you can see, I'm struggling to talk because the longer I talk in these types of videos, the less sense I make, and I always mess up the farewell. So without further ado, I shall see you in the next episode, and thank you very much for watching, and Merry Christmas.